Right. Can you guys? Let me see. All right. Can you guys hear me? And I need to make sure that they can hear me on YouTube as well. Oh, there we go. Take that off. Oh, I'm so falling behind. All right. Where are we? All right. What is this? Okay. All right. Yes, you guys can hear me. Thank you. I'm talking to the people on YouTube. And let me contact the judge to see where he's at so we can get next case started. Give me a second. One second. All right, judge coming on. Um, okay, yeah, he liked it. So he'll be coming on. Me, what I got? Oh, I need to do. Wait a minute. What is this? Oh my god. Okay, yes, this view X, and let me share this. Share, send, redirect. Okay, share it here, 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 here. And it's been a minute since we even did a space. Please share and join. Please share and join. All right. Send. You have group selection. Okay. All right. I guess I'm doing it right. Are liberals, did I spell everything? Are liberals causing a race war? Trump reparations for white people? I may have to change up the title, and I think I am. Actually, let me change it a little bit. I think I'm gonna put Trump reparations for, is Trump giving reparations to white people? Is Donald Trump giving reparations to white people? Is Donald Trump, which is so funny because he's not. Done. All right. And then, of course, yes, I want to talk about, are liberals causing a race war, because I think they are. Um, and what else? There was something else. Oh, and I do want to talk about Donald Trump appointees who he appointed in his cabinet so far. For me, I think the person, well, two people. I like the fact that he gave Robert F. Kennedy Jr. a position, but I think that when you appoint someone to be part of the Department of Health, it should be someone from the medical field. Um, yeah. However, the guy who he appointed to be the border czar, Tom Homan, I know his first name is Tom. I'm probably saying his name incorrectly. I'm glad he appointed him. Excuse me. But yeah, so it's a whole bunch of things we're going to be talking about. The judge is coming up shortly. You will have to ask white people. No, I'm I'm asking the question because it's not true. And maybe I need to change the title again. It said Donald Trump is not giving white people reparations because he didn't say that. And in the video with Booty Butt Don Lemon, you know, um, he was talking. He showed the clip of Donald Trump talking about the education system. He didn't say anything to say reparations. To get reparations from that is not only a stretch, it's false. And that is when you talk about disinformation, fake news, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Let me see something. Uh, yeah, sent it there. How long ago did I send it to that? Okay, no, 9 minutes ago. Who is this? Oh, 10 minutes. Okay, so I sent it out. Yeah. Damn. When was the last time we did an X Space? How I can tell you? When was the last time we did an X Space? I think the last was probably like 3 weeks ago. It was the town hall. I did a town hall. That was a really good space. But we haven't been doing X spaces, and I don't know. Sometimes, wait a minute. I'm still kind of like burnt out from the whole election season this summer. It was just too much of every damn thing. I support the border czar. He's not playing. Yeah, he's not playing. He is not playing that. First of all, he knows the job, and he's serious about the job. He's not separating families. He knows the true stats. He knows the law, and I love it that he taught ASC a new asshole when he had to sit in front of that congressional committee, and she thought that she had a gotcha moment with him, and it was actually in reverse. So, Dana, you should work out the tech issues before you go on air so that the show flows better. You're all over the place. Michelle, honey, no, I'm not all over the place. There's no technical issues. Do you know the difference between technical issues and getting into the topic? Obviously, you do not. Mind your business because you don't know how this works. This is not a show. This is an X space, number one. Number two, I'm waiting for the judge to come on because this is his X space. I just facilitated. Number three, there's no technical issues because I'm on X space first. I'm just so kind enough to air this live on YouTube. See, I hook up YouTube after I hook up X space. Please don't tell me how to do my goddamn job. I do this for a living. You don't know what you're talking about. There's no technical issues, and I'll always check the audio. I always check the audio because you have to. Oh, here go the judge. Let's see. And let me send you co-hosts. stay girly then. Oh, oh, I am. No, I'm not a girl. I'm a woman. I'm not a girl. I'm a woman. And I'm a woman that knows the damn job. I know what I'm doing. And it's bigger than a pet peeve when people try to tell me how to do my job and they don't even have a clue because you're not in that field. Hi, Judge. Yes, thank you, Cattell. We do this every week.
Hi there.
How are you?
Okay, I was on mute. I didn't realize it. Anyway, greetings, everyone. Glad to have you in.
Um, so I put in the title, I changed it. The first title was Are Liberals Causing a Race War? And that is the overall theme, and yes, they are. And then I changed it to Is Donald Trump giving reparations to white people? The reason why I put that in the title, because it's trending now, because what do you call him? Lemon butt or lemon juicy butt?
Lemon
Lemon
Booty,
booty, Don Lemon.
one of the ends for CNN being known as Crying Negro Network.
Right. He put up I guess a TikTok clip with Donald Trump talking about the education and some of the things he want to change in the education system. And he did make an announcement. One of the things he want to do is get rid of the federal education department and hand it back over to the states. I don't think that's such a bad thing, but he he put out another clip of Donald Trump talking about holding institutions accountable, I guess, for certain practices. And so Don Lemon conclusion, along with the other idiot Keith Boykin, they believe that Trump will be giving white people reparations. So I sent you the video. Did you watch it? You mean
Yes, I did.
did you get reparations?
No, I didn't get reparations.
Trump never said he was giving reparations not only to white people, but he never said he was giving it to black people. He don't even mention the word reparations. Maybe one time during his first term when he said, "Oh, reparations, interesting," and that's it. And that was probably when he was running for office. Who knows? He doesn't talk about reparations. He never said anything about restitution to white people or any particular group. So you have these lying liberals running around here. Joy Reid is another one. They're literally trying to cause a social media race war. Yes, do racism still exist here in America? Yes, and there are individuals who are racist of all backgrounds. Yes, racism exists throughout the world. White supremacy, yes. But to label MAGA people as racist, Donald Trump and his administration as fascist or racist is completely false. Like they're creating and making up these outrageous narratives
If
to.
I'm,
Mhm.
I put my hand up. I don't know how. I forgot how. If I might offer something before you get too deep into that, the far left crowd has to do that because there is something that was illustrated by Trump's victory, and that is black, white, brown, red, yellow, in between. I don't care what you are. If you consider yourself a human being, you have something more in common with everybody else that considers themselves a normal human being than you do with these freaks who go around trying to put boys and girls locker rooms, shower rooms, in girls sports, get your children mutilated before they even reach puberty behind some poison somebody's feeding them, etc., etc. And they have to try to bring this race thing up to try and establish some distinction to keep a grasp on what they were trying to reach a certain group. But the problem is we all have more in common with each other. And this crazy thing that they're doing offers everybody in this country a unique opportunity to engage in unified action to get this country together and make it America great again is a hell of a phrase to reflect what that's all about. So we have an opportunity here, but they're trying to destroy it for their own little selfish things. And when I analyze what they're doing, it's unique in all the world when it comes around to what it does for human character. Every other religion, pagan, monotheistic, cult, system of philosophy tries to install good character in humans, doing the right thing for the right reasons, courage, bravery, guilt, shame, so that people restrain themselves. And this crowd is trying to get rid of guilt and shame. It's trying to get rid of all standards. Cowardice is okay. You have no obligations from their perspective. And that's not how we got from cave to condominium. And we need to do something about bringing that back together. And when we have alliances that develop, because those alliances are based on natural humanity, that makes all of the rest of this garbage just sort of evaporate, at least temporarily. But these clowns are actually trying to ramp it back up. You can read how they play things out in the mainstream, or let's put it as Musk puts it, since it's his venue, legacy media, and we see people trying to make a mess. We are going to not see civil war, I don't think, but we're going to see an aggravated level of civil unrest, more along the lines of BLM, George Floyd protests and burnings and arsons getting ramped up several notches. I think we are going to see that. But they ought to be, well, they aren't. They don't think, they feel, they believe, but they are not into this logical, reasonable, rational process of critical and analytical thought. And they're not dedicated to making where they live better, safer, more secure places with economic prosperity, sense of purpose, morality, ethics, where the people are dedicated to public peace, dignity, and order. They are scared of doing anything that requires that they extend themselves other than when they are in effectively a mob, and they want somebody to do it for them. But when you do that, that is, have somebody stand in and do what you ought to do, then you invite in a totalitarian state and you risk the republic. And that's what we're seeing. They want to accuse MAGA, and probably most of the people that are tuning into this are being fascist or Nazis, but they're the ones that actually behave that way. They lie profusely. They say what they say as lies very long, very loudly. And as Goebbels, Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi minister of propaganda, said almost 90 years ago, he said, tell a lie long enough and loud enough, and you can get anyone, even the liar, to believe the lie. And that's what we're running into. So it's time for people to be honest, truthful, forthright, good humans, and come together in unity to save this republic. And in the process of doing so, we each become more familiar with each other than these clowns are trying to get us to become, so they can maintain their little edge on this sordid, uh, decrepit, and degenerate thing that they're trying to put on everybody. So I'll pass the mic.
So, it's been close to a month since the last X Space, and the last X Space was the town hall why Black men are not voting for Kamala Harris. And so I just want to let people know this is still open mic. If you want to come up, comment, ask a question, or if you want to bring up another topic of conversation, please do so. So you can request to come up at any time. And like I said earlier, I'm glad this election is over. Trump won. And so now we can start looking to see, his agenda, who he is going to be selecting or appointing to his cabinet in certain positions. So there's a whole lot more content. But I'm glad that we're past all this election stuff. I also want to bring up, topic of conversation tonight. Um, of course, the migrants, the illegal migrants, when we talk about the border, he did appoint Tom, I got to find his last name, to be the border czar. And he sounds like a no nonsense. And I love the fact that he shut AOC ass up at the congressional hearings. And what else is going on in the news? Well, anything else you guys want to bring up? Was I think it was some other stuff that I wanted to mention. I can't think of it right now. So let me go to the DMV and Dre. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I just wanted to ask the judge, now that Trump has been elected, uh, not that I'm against it, how should we as black people move, or what should we be looking for from him in our communities, if anything?
I was trying to get unmuted. What have you demanded? Trump is a
Well,
populist. It's been something that's kind of rare in American politics for the last several decades. We don't have populism much. We have people who have an agenda and they're trying to push it hard and they lose track of stuff. Like, let's analyze briefly what you are looking at and how Trump got elected. First, a brief look at what the Democrats did. The Democrats appealed to certain colored women and certain weak guys. The Republican Party, say MAGA, it appealed to ordinary, normal women and it appealed to young straight guys. And those constitute the overwhelming majority. It addressed women who knew what a woman was, whereas the Democratic Party, they essentially were in a situation where they wanted to act like, what was it Kanye Jackson did, which I thought was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in a Supreme Court confirmation hearing. She didn't know what a woman was, and she's supposed to be one. That was embarrassing and disgraceful. But you see, what you're dealing with is a restoration of value in what's going on right now. I've seen it change. And it used to be, I don't care what you were in this country, there was a thing called meritocracy. In other words, you earned what you merited. And the push was to get people out of the way of merit being displayed when it was there. You didn't want to block it because that was a national resource that you wanted to cultivate. Now, what we have is not old time racism from 60 years ago that was attempting to block any display of merit because a certain group of people were viewed as being somehow or another intermentioned or under people or subhuman, uh, two-legged domestic animals, so to speak. That's been out of the way, but now we have folk that are trying to do effectively the same thing because they're trying to give people not an opportunity to show merit, but a chance to receive an entitled dole because of several things, one of which is they've been conditioned not to work. Another one is they've been conditioned to feel like they should get a ribbon just for showing up, participation ribbon. And finally, that they're entitled to something because they want it rather than they're being willing to earn it. And that's not the way this country got to where it is. I don't care what your ethnicity is. That answers your question. What's going on is that Trump is likely to deliver your opportunity to show your merit. They'll give you an opportunity to do hard work without obstruction, to do something to make sure that the playing field is leveled so you can show what you have, so you don't have a huge hill to climb where you happen to be and others don't, and to take the resources that are being diverted right now for ridiculous causes that are anti humanity and not in the interest of this country, and saying, you're on this airplane, you can't get off. And if the cabin pressure drops low and the oxygen mask falls, put your own mask on first before attempting to help others. And right now, we're sitting there getting woozy from lack of oxygen or uh, what it takes to be self-sustaining because we're giving away too much to other folk that haven't paid their dues. So I think what you're going to see from Trump is an opportunity for people to pay their dues and get what they're supposed to get honestly in return from that. Now, if that answers your question.
No, that was great. That was great. That was great.
Okay, thank you, sir. I passed the mic.
Dre.
Hey, first I'd like to say thank you, Dana, for hosting the space, and thank you, Judge Joe Brown, for being a representation of masculinity for the Black community um, and traditional values, because we definitely need it. So I'd like to just say that first.
Thank you.
Yep.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So my thing here, I'm gonna try to make this succinct. So I will make it succinct. Actually, I was noticing the communist takeover with the Democratic Party and the Marxist principles that they were pushing. But I also pay attention to both sides, and I got pretty heavily wrapped up in this election season. Um, but I started to notice some things that was kind of worrying about the Trump side as well. I think the Kamala campaign was a throw off because they catered so heavily to the minority. There's no way you can win an election with a minority. And some of the things he talks about with biometric tracking and things like that are already implemented in China to create an authoritarian state. And so those type of things do worry me. And I feel like, they gave us a big evil to combat so that we don't notice the small, what they say, slippery slope um, type of actions that come from the hero that we might have chosen. So I kind of, so two-part question, I kind of want to advocate for still staying vigilant from both parties. And what can we do to maybe make sure that people don't idolize Trump and make sure that he has things on the docket for us that we're able to hold him accountable to? And how do we also, as well as bring our people out of the Democratic plantation, but also not push them towards something that might not be better. And maybe if we can kind of have some type of Black populist movement. I hope that was succinct and clear and easily addressable.
Black populist movement. Interesting idea. Who leads it? Chicken Eating George Sharpton, Al Sharpton, Crying Don Lemon, Van Turner, Pillsbury Doughboy with chocolate chips, uh, Roly
Roland
Poly
Martin.
Martin. Who leads this? These people aren't fit to lead, but a lot of folk would like them to be the leadership. Is it supposed to be Cory Booker, who I think is a disgrace? Maxine Waters? No way. So who's the leadership? It's the local folk that have to be developed. And the other thing is that again, you have to understand there is a commonality of purpose here that completely alters the landscape. There's never been anything quite like this in the country's history that so brings together the majority of the people in common cause. What we have seen to bring about this deficit of leadership is several decades ago, feminism was very anxious to portray masculinity in a negative fashion. So they wanted to create an image that humanity, leadership or follower, is supposed to make this mystic status where it is holy, holier than thou. And it doesn't work. So they started vilifying men and some women for doing stuff that if you know somebody, you know these things about them, but we don't politely put them out in public, or at least we didn't until recently. And this airing of dirty linen constantly was to diminish what ordinarily would be heroes, fearless leaders, effective leaders in the eyes of the public, so that they would become distrusted, they would become discredited, and people could operate behind the scenes with a leadership vacuum and instill people who were not good leaders, who basically might have even been complete failures at the subject, not just good or run of the mill, but just outright failures. And there was a thing that I found astonishing that went along with this that amplified the effects. The tabloids of the 1980s became the front pages of the newspapers in this century. The gossip column, which used to be on the last column of the last page of the last section, is now front page. And this kind of salacious clip trap is what we are focusing on rather than the realities of leadership. We hire people to set certain examples. Are they courageous? Are they brave? Are they intelligent, rational, logical, reasonable, cunning on our behalf? Are they ingenious where they can come up with ideas that work to help out the republic? These are the things we make assessments on. Are they good war leaders in time of war? Do they deal with crisis when there's an economic situation, where there is an ecological one, where there's a weather situation? Can they handle the pressure? Can they inspire the people to do these things that are necessary for a government and a people to advance? These are the things that we look for in leaders. But nowadays, you want somebody with a one sided display of what is pleasing to certain crowds, not the old time morality, but tolerance, not vested in tolerance for people who are interested in merit, where there are no artificial obstacles for them, but giving a particular benefit to a group that is just way out of line. Again, we don't have boys and girls toilets and girls shower rooms and in girls sports, and we don't have children being left as prey for pedophile predators. We don't have that. That's not human, but we do seem to have that move afoot right now. So we have to fight back on that, and we have to understand that leadership has some constraints, and those constraints are natural all over the world, all throughout human history, and somebody's been trying to basically step on them these days because it gets in the way of an agenda. I'll pass the mic.
Uh, if you guys would allow me, I just have one follow up to that, and I appreciate your answer. And I'll just step down after this. Will be my last time speaking to share the mic with everybody else. Uh, I just kind of had a good idea, I think, based on what you were saying, and I agree because those leaderships, that people in leadership, they do get blackmail with dirt that gets found. They do get set up in these precarious situations to where they're pushed into a situation where they can make the wrong move, and then somebody can have dirt on them in order to expose them, and they use that to control them. With that being said, I guess we'd have to find a way to combat that as best as we possibly could. Um, and instead of putting one leader up, which creates the situation where they can be idolized or they can be easily tampered with, I think we'd have to create, and it doesn't have to just be black populists, but just the people populace. But if we're speaking specifically black, we could do it just like APAC does. That's what really runs everything is the money. If we can create some type, and I forget what the exact name for it is, but some type of fund, um, lobby, whatever you call it, to where we put representation and money to the politicians that will agree to vote for our interests. Um, I think that's a way to do it because it also distributes the power between the whole organization, and there will be checks and balances. Again, it's hard because organizations that have come up in the past, like Black Panther Party, or they're always infiltrated from within. So those are things that we would have to, find a way to combat. And I don't have the answer for that, but I guess in my brain, the best way moving forward might be, in order to get some representation with the least corruption possible, is to create some type of lobby like APAC, and Elon Musk kind of did that with the Pennsylvania thing, and it had some effects. But I think we should create some type of lobby if possible.
Real,
Let me ask you a
I'm
question.
sorry,
Have you
real quick. It's only you two guys up here as speakers, so you can stay longer if you want.
Yeah, I
okay?
wanted to actually say, well, go
Let
go
me
ahead, Judge. I ain't
question.
gonna talk over you, but go ahead. I wanted to say something
Let
too.
me ask you a question. Either one of you, have you played sports?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you go to a school where the team was mixed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you not block for your quarterback because he might have been white or black or Asian? Or did you not try to help the runner out when it came to evading somebody trying to tackle him? You did it because whatever you did, because he was part of the team, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm saying we have an opportunity to become fully a part of a team where we can mesh with it, work with it, enhance it, be benefited by it. Sometimes uh, we don't need to focus on what somebody's paint job is when they're blocking on the line, tackling on the line, or they're throwing the ball, or they're receiving the ball, or defending a ball against the ball being thrown. So maybe we need to pay a little bit of attention to that because we've got a new dynamic. Biden, is like a broken clock. Twice a day, it's going to be at the right time, whether it's broken or not. And he did speak truth, and I've been saying it for decades. Census data indicates that in a very little time, there will be no majority race in this country. Everybody will be a minority. If you want to see how it works, you can watch this in places like Hawaii, where there is no racial or ethnic majority in that island state. And everybody has to form coalitions and interact with each other. The old thing about you needing a particularized leadership and setup for a particular race is not going to completely evaporate because there's a thing humans have called xenophobia, which is a negative reaction to the different, unless it is something that excites the viewer or the person who partakes of it, like a new meal or a new taste or a new thrill. And that's what we have to do. We have to change xenophobia from a negative reaction to a thrill at the exposure of something different. We call it diversity, but diversity is a phrase that's been bastardized by people who are trying to pimp it. And we don't need that kind of thing. So, yeah, black people need their advocacy. White people need their advocacy. Yellow people, brown people, red people, too. Everybody does. It's like anybody. You have a governmental system and a system like ours, and you have lobbyists. People need the lobbyists. But the point of the exercise is don't get so crippled in it that you lose track of what you're trying to achieve, which is a full-fledged equality of status and rights and opportunity in this system. But we don't want anybody to give it to us because, that's like feeding a man a fish rather than letting him learn how to fish so he can feed himself. And it's also an interesting socio-political ploy to keep somebody dependent on their entitlements so that they become helpless and they can be easily manipulated. And that's what we saw in this last election when a certain party was trying to keep its pets, its domestics in that situation so they could be readily manipulated to push some cult that was not in the best interest of the whole ethnic group that it was expected to kowtow and be in line with what they were supposed to be doing. Now, I pass the mic.
Real quick, I want to ask DMV and Dre, how old are you guys?
I'm 33.
25.
Oh wow. See, I love that. I love the younger generation. Because I love what you guys had to say and stuff like that. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
why. That's why.
I watch your show all the time. You and Judge, I watch y'all on YouTube all the time. So
Oh, okay,
I,
cool.
yeah. What I
Um,
wanted to also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, I was going to say I want to get to Black first, but go ahead, say what you was going to say, DMV,
Um,
and y'all guys could stay up here on the panel as well. So go ahead.
I just wanted to ask the judge one thing. One, how do we get more? Well, what I want to say is to the other guy is, I feel like our representation will be us being educated and informed on the realities of things that are going on in our society and understanding the history of other things that are also going on. So what I wanted to ask the judge was, how do we get more people that look like us more invested in education? Because I feel like education is going to be the foundation for us to overcome any obstacles in this society that we're living in. And like you just said, we're being manipulated because we don't have a clue what's going on. So how do we get more Black people invested in education and being informed on what the realities are around us every day?
Well, how about this one? It takes about 6 days for a fad to start in the United States with the type of communications we have today. It just ain't cool to be lame. It ain't cool to be stupid. It ain't cool not to be educated. It ain't cool to be a fool. Start that. And it passes very quickly into a reality. You see, we have a situation that most people don't realize today gives us an opportunity. How many young Black people like NBA and ideate on being part of the NBA? I don't care whether they're 5'6" or 5'7", they have fans,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. The NBA in 1946 was one of the most racist institutions in the United States of America. And then there are Don Barksdale, who ran track and played football at UCLA to play for the Lakers. And now, when you look at a basketball court, what are you looking at? It is a
All
court
Black people.
filled, yeah, exactly, filled with players who are there because of their merit. You got LeBron. You gotta be awful tough to get a, deal with LeBron on the court. Same thing when Shaq was holding forth. You gotta be bad MF, right? Well, the same thing, we have to start worrying about preparing ourselves to be the bad asses, so to speak, in something besides basketball. Because if we do, then it's wide open eventually, just like basketball became. Where in 1946, the rule book wasn't much different than it is now, but you didn't see any Black folk. Now you see a whole bunch of Black folk, basically the same rule book, and the rules have changed because everybody gets to show their merit. Now, we may not run the teams, though Magic Johnson was holding forth on that respect, but in that respect. But the same thing with this bigger system. We just have to identify with the fact that we have a good opportunity. It's political, economic, and social. And one of our big problems is that those folk, Al Sharptons, Cory Bookers, Don Lemons, Van Turners, you get Roland Martin types, you get idiots who are selfish, stupid, and they can't even walk in their own communities without risking a behind whipping. You have, what is it? Charlemagne the God, 5'6", and he's naming himself after a literal 7-foot tall, dark age tyrant who would have put Adolf Hitler to shame. It is absolutely ridiculous what we do to ourselves. So let's come into the damn 21st century and take this thing on like we took on basketball. Now, I
So
passed the mic.
are you saying that's with celebrities? Like it starts with like,
No,
okay.
no, no. I'm not saying celebrities, but in 1946, there were no Black folk in basketball. In 2024, there are a whole lot in basketball. And what happened is the game changed because the composition of the players changed because the players developed competence in the game. What we have to do is develop competence in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. It means some young kids, black kids, everybody's kids start having to ideate on, I want to be the rocket scientist. I want to be the physicist. I want to be the engineer and make these things. I want to be the economist who figures these things out. I want to be able to do the math. I want to understand the glorious language that opened up so much, which is math. You see, and we have to start thinking that way, and we can make it a fad. Don't duck on stupid. Being a fool ain't cool. But you see, right now it is. So we just need to take the next 6 days in a concentrated fashion, and we can start a fad, which is developing your mind rather than just trying to go off and show out in a physical fashion without knowing what the hell to do with it. Now, that's just a suggestion.
I'm sorry. All right, so Black first, and then I'm gonna go to Bad Preach. So go ahead, Black first.
Good evening, Miss Dana. Good evening, Judge. Good to
Good
hear
evening.
from both of y'all. Again, you know I'm an avid
Good evening.
follower. And I say this on the backs of the two young men and Judge, what you were saying, because I was just reading about how AI is getting ready to take off, and I think a lot of times we're not prepared because we don't push education like we used to amongst each other. And we had it at a point in my life growing up, where it wasn't cool to be smart. It was just cool to act a fool. And you guys are of my age group, so I know you know what I'm talking about. And as they were talking, I was thinking about um, this election. And I'll say this: I met Judge 2004. We bought him to Middletown, Ohio. I'm sure he remembers that, and I listened to him. I got a chance to talk to him. So I respect the Judge wholeheartedly. I think one of the things that we have to do, and you said it, it cannot be a nationwide leader. And the reason why I mentioned the church is because the church has its problems. We know that the church has been invaded by pulpit pimps. We know that. I can say that because I'm in that group, but not in that group, if you know what I mean.
Okay, you're a preacher, but you ain't a pulpit.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I got.
And so I watched how certain groups began to take over the church. And I'm gonna go back to when Oprah Winfrey first started. There was what people don't realize, and it's true, the greatest institution that we had in our community was the church. And when they attacked that and divided that, and they did it slickly too, it threw us for a whole loop. And the reason why I say that is because, like the two young men said, and you addressed them, we can't have national leaders. We have to have local leaders. Where did we meet at? At the church. And a lot of black men left the church. And I understand for their reasons, because I used to go out and talk to them all the time. And I bought a lot of them back because, you have to change the perception. When a man is in the church, and it's nothing against black women, when a man is in the church, not only is the family stronger, but the church is stronger because those men hold that leader accountable. So I think this election, the reason why I mention this goes back to what I'm getting ready to say. I think this election was a reckoning. It separated the wheat from the tare. Those who really care about our plight here in America. And then there are those who have, swallowed the Kool-Aid, and I can't blame them for that because, information is power. You have to get the information in order to survive in this world. So what we were doing is this election separated who is for us and who is not for us, and it showed And Judge, you and Dana have covered this for the last 4 months. I listen to y'all all the time, 6 months. It showed who people really were. And I think we have a hard time um, separating that all skin folks ain't kin folks. I met Roland at the Atlanta airport. I will never forget this. I was in Atlanta. I was flying back from a conference going back to Ohio. And I met Roland Martin. And I got to talking to him. And I talked to him maybe about 15 minutes. We were waiting on flights passing by. He entertained and talked to me. And you know, he was on television. I said, "Oh yeah, Roland Martin, you know, he's got it going on, and he says a lot." And come to find out, roly poly, he ain't one of us. He talks like he is, but he's not. So the reason why I say this, the young men that are younger, and what you said, you have to take the leadership in your own communities and start from there. Um, because whenever we congregate, and that goes back to slavery, and I'm sure, you know, Dana, you and Judge know this, whenever we congregated, um, even after slavery, there had to be a white person in the midst, so we couldn't congregate. So I think it's separating us, and I know a lot of black women are mad at black men, and black men have stood up, which they shouldn't be, and black men have stood up and said, no, we're not going to do it, and the media spins it like we're misogynists. I heard you say that yesterday. I think it was, Judge. I'm the great misogynist. I just busted out laughing. That was so funny to me. But you have to have leadership in the home, and everybody plays a role. And I think what white society, which they started and as early as the 50s, when they set out to destroy our families after the 60s, because FBI Director Hoover said there will never, ever be another Martin Luther King. And they set out to destroy the HBCUs. That's why they are what they are now. They set out to destroy our communities, the drugs, the alcohol, everything, because they didn't want a revolutionary. Because we are the only group of people in this country, we are the only group that will stand up to the system and not turn our heads. Where other groups, they come in, they try to assimilate into the system, but we know what the system is. So, you know, you take the man out of the equation. I hear you say this all the time, Judge. You are absolutely right. You take the man out of the equation, then the family becomes unprotected. That's why they sent a lot of us over to the Vietnam War. I'm a veteran. I served with guys that were in Vietnam. They messed up our communities when they did that. They did that on purpose. They took the revolutionaries, those strong enough to fight, and they sent them overseas, drafted them, gave them no choice. So when you take that element out of the community, now it becomes all unbalanced. So I think this show, we have to have an agreement between black men and black women. And I think black women are now seeing, after, you know, the tirade, you know, they call us out, and what they're going to see, that these black men, whether they stayed on the couch, whether they voted for Trump, they stood up for what they believed in. And you can't have BO coming talking down to black men when we put you in office. That when he did that, I knew the election was gone. So it had nothing to do with Kamala Harris unqualified. What it brought out was the men are standing up in the community. And I just want to encourage all young men, older men, my age. I'm 62 years old now. We have to continue to stand up in our community to make the necessary gains that we need for our children to survive coming up in the next 20 or so years. And I land my plane there. Thank you so much, Miss Dana, for the time. Judge, man, live long and prosper. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me add a little to your mix. Three things in here that have always struck me. I used to represent the Black Baptist Ministers Alliance in Memphis, Tennessee, but that's been 35 something plus years ago. And one of the things I noticed is they stopped preaching sin. And some of them were more anxious to get what they got out of the collection plate than to save souls. They were, as you put it, sir, pulpit pimps. And I started noticing that the crowds of little spastically dancing folk in front of the pulpit, right there in front of the church, in front of the pulpit, ministers of music and such like, they were people that there was nothing in that book that authorized them to be up in that church except as sinners seeking redemption, not celebrating what they are. And for expediency purposes, these pulpit pimps wanted the money that they might put into the plate, and they tolerated it and encouraged it. That got us out of whack. Next thing that I think about is I studied the American Civil War at great length. And I'm struck by something that Ulysses Grant put in his memoirs. He said at the end of the Civil War, when he was Union military commander, he ordered a survey to be done to discover the literacy standing and status of the Union troops. He said he initially was astonished to discover that the only completely literate units in the whole of the Union Army were colored. And you never saw a black man who didn't have a book, he didn't have something to write with, and he wasn't actively trying to improve his mind. And he said, after noticing that and checking with his commanders to see that that was now under universal, he was firmly of the opinion that black folks should be full citizens and lend his support to the 14th, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. So I'm thinking about what happened from all of these black men being so strong when it came to improving their minds. And then I noticed something else too, which is in this last election, I started looking at the statistics of black folk who supported for and indicated they voted for Donald Trump. And I was struck by a similarity. 160 years ago, at the end of the American Civil War, the stats you get right now for black folk who voted for Trump just about exactly match the stats for the black folk who were free in the United States of America and didn't need the 13th Amendment to escape from slavery because they got themselves free. And I can't help but think that maybe the mindset that gives the independents to vote for the candidate that will actually get you something rather than for a shield game, a skin game, is the same kind of mindset that would have not tolerated being a slave before the American Civil War. I find the two stats to be almost identical, and I find that a fascinating coincidence, or maybe it's not. So we need to think about those three things and get it together
Judge, you're
because there's a
absolutely. If I
lot
could
of.
say, if I could go, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If I could say that, you're absolutely right about Grant. And when Grant found out that knowledge, he actually, and I know you know this, he actually turned his back on black folks. He made deals, and he actually turned his back on black folks. You are absolutely correct. What he found in the soldiers, they always carried a rifle, a pen, a book, something to read, um, and a notepad. Every single soldier. The black Civil War freedom fighters were the most educated people in the military. That's what he found out when he took that survey. So I think and to piggyback what you said on when we come together, that's why I said when we come together, it has to start out locally. It has to, because like any movement of our people, any movement of strength, there are always going to be those who will try to invade it, to disrupt it. But like you said, it's getting to the place now where all these people coming over to this country, and I think black people eyes were awoken that they might say that they agree with you, but when they vote as a community, if you understand what I'm saying. They could care less
Well,
about. Okay,
but wait, Black
I would
first.
like
I have to get to
go
the
ahead.
other
I'm
news.
sorry. I'm landing there.
I need to get to Bad Preach, and then I'm gonna go to Chanel and then Dre.
Thank you.
Thank you. How you doing, Miss Dana, Judge Joe Brown? I'm gonna say something real quick. I want to say about something Judge Joe Brown said a while ago about LeBron and the basketball and the football, and he said something else about some other, I guess, positions in life or whatever for Black folks. But my thing is, like I said, those positions are not doing anything for, the Black communities, anything like that. The things that we've been through, and this goes for everybody, not saying for equality and everything like that in this country, it needs to be some diversity, and it needs to be there in the positions of what I've seen with my eyes is, especially in the Black community, the police, number one, judges, number two, and politics, number three. You know what I mean? Black folks are way too comfortable in letting everybody do everything for them and expecting them to do it the right way and do right by them. And it has never happened. We are sitting back, comfortable. We hold none of these positions on an equal level. So whatever is going to be done to us is going to be done to us, and it's nothing going to be done about it because we have no leverage in the game in any of those areas. So that's just my opinion on that. I want to see what you thought about it, because I've been talking to friends and stuff like that about it, and we just not focusing in any other areas that matters in this country. And that's what I had to say.
Hi, everyone.
I don't
First of all,
have
I
any
want to say thank you.
agreement with. Go ahead.
Sorry. Judge Joe Brown, Your Honorable. I would like to say, first of all, thank you for hosting this space. Thank you for the folks hosting this space. It's a really good conversation. I joined probably late. I wasn't aware of it, but I'm happy to be here. And it ties into a conversation I was having a little while ago, actually, with somebody who might be called a pulpit pimp. Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to. I'm hesitant to call them that, otherwise I wouldn't be dealing with them. But I challenged them on the fact that they weren't speaking out a little bit more on values that are in the Bible and in the church, and they were really stomping really hard for the Democratic platform, including like transgender ideology as it relates to kids. So so that was interesting that I kind of came into this conversation really on the back of that conversation. What I like to say to the folks that I am someone who supported Trump this time. I was a very strong supporter of Biden Harris last time. I have never supported Republicans before. I have been independent for a long time. And I would like to say to the Black men who went ahead and voted for Trump, thank you. Thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
speaking up. We need your leadership, because sometimes women are not seeing it. And I've worked for women's organizations for the last couple of years and other organizations as well. And what I would say is that I've been sadly disappointed to see how many women are just too fearful of going against the grain, who are too agreeable. And they will agree with me in private, but they won't agree with me in public on issues that really matter. So I would just like to say to the men who took that stand, thank you. To the women as well, thank you. I am doing a lot of thinking, and I talk to family, and some of my family certainly don't agree with me on this. I've kind of moved away from a lot of folks with my positions in the last couple of years. But I'm doing it with a lot of thought, and I do it with a lot of ability to go back and forth with people, and I'm willing to hear arguments out, and as long as they're rational and fact-based, I'm listening to it. I might adjust my opinion. But one thing I'm really thinking about is our attachment to just the Black identity. And yes, I am a Black woman. I'm not saying I'm not proud to be a Black woman. It's not an issue with that. The issue is that, like, what's attached to it. It's like, oh, you're a Black woman, so you have to vote this way. You have to believe this, and you have to think this way. This is actually very degrading. And I'm really concerned that we are just embracing this too quickly. I think that our North Star shouldn't be our color identity. Our North Star should be our values. And to the extent that we focus on uniting on the basis of our values, we will be better off. And that will mean that all skin folks aren't kin folks. And so be it, because they aren't. Some of them need to be in jail, and some of them need to be in the White House, and some of them need to be like in the pulpit, and some all these different places. But like I that's one thing I'm grappling with, and I have family members, you know, um, yeah, and family members, including my stepdad, who's a judge, and we disagree about these things, and but I'm open to hearing people's thoughts about it. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in that direction. If anybody's read Coleman Hughes, I'm kind of in that direction. Some people will say, "Oh, that's too crazy. That's just not gonna. That's not realistic." But that's kind of the direction I'm going in. Thank you.
You sound a Ms. Brown.
Yes, Mr. Brown, Judge Brown. Funny. We're no
There you
relation
go.
though, but not that I know of
don't
anyway.
know really. Unless you go back far
Probably if
enough,
we
you
go back
might
far
find.
enough.
Now, you said some very interesting things, and I approve
you.
of them. Let me tell you something that's really tragic. It's called culture, negative culture. 50-some years ago, I was in Washington, D.C. and Chicago, back and forth, working for this D.C. think tank. Okay. And I had to read at great length on microfilm in the Library of Congress what they called at the time the slave pamphlets. In other words, how to raise slaves for fun and profit. And they went from, I think the earliest one I read was 1706, so by a William Lynch, by the way. And it wasn't a letter, it was a series of pamphlets, many of them. And I think the last one I read was about 1860, just before the Civil War started. One of the secrets that, well, I don't know if it was a secret, but the plantation owners passed this amongst themselves. One of the things that they advocated was putting elements of slavery in the Negroes' culture, so the Negroes would make slaves of themselves and their children without realizing it, which would make the slaveholders' job a lot easier. And I see that now, the same Democratic Party that promoted slavery, the same Democratic Party that by 1850 was the only political party still organized in the United States until the Republicans got chartered in 1851 to end slavery. They spread very profusely the elements of a slave culture in Black culture. And what they've done recently is they've evoked those same elements in their Negro fan base, so to speak. I'll be polite about it. And they've got them to behave like slaves without them realizing it. But the problem is that they expect their Negroes to remain on the plantation. It's just there's no cotton for them to pick, so they're idle waiting on something for them to be assigned. And I think what they do these days is make rainbows. But that's one of the big problems is acculturation that produces an acclimation, an ability to well fit in with something that is not good for them, and they to themselves. So that's something that we have to expose because, as Goebbels said, telling a lie long enough and loud enough will get anybody, including the liar, to believe it. The truth will indeed set you free, and it works a lot more effectively and a lot swifter. But the people who have the truth tend to be very reticent about speaking it. So we have to stop this reticence and speak out. Now, I passed the mic. Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Judge.
All right. Real quick, before I get to Kanye, I want to swing back to Dre. You had your hand up for a minute, and then Kanye. Then I'm gonna go back to you, the DM.
Thank you. So every time I speak, I'm gonna probably try to tie back. Not try. Try. I just keep pushing myself not to say the word try. I'm going to tie back to the common thread that I established in order to try to keep or in order to keep focus on what I'm trying to basically work here, because I'm trying to work a plan. And so what I'm gathering from what the judge is saying is to focus on psychographics, not demographics. Is basically marketing terms. Psychographic is the way people think versus demographic is what they are, like things like skin color, where they live, things like that. And he talks at length a lot in his interviews and also today about the culture. And the culture has been infiltrated through marketing, whether that's the Black culture or whether that's now just the culture of the core of the American people. So I kind of have a plan here. If I could go ahead and articulate this. And it's only in 3 steps right now, but I figured it'd be fleshed out. And maybe if any of the other panelists have any ideas or this sparks any type of inspiration, that we could speak further on it at length. But I think what it boils down to in making significant change are things like number 1, culture and marketing, number 2, finance, and number 3, incorporating technology and smart contracts, because I think that's the way that we stop the movement from being infiltrated, and I'll describe that in length. As you guys know, the CIA, they take down different countries all over the world and install leaders. They've taken down Black movements and installed leaders, or taken them down completely and just gotten rid of the leaders. But with technology like smart contracts, I think we're able to kind of go against that. Anyway, so I'll go over the 3 points, culture and marketing wise. Like the judge says, like the movies, they were able to influence us through the movies, make pimping cool, make things like that cool. And they have a strong code on that culture, because as soon as Bill Cosby went to go buy NBC, you kind of see what happened to him. Granted, I don't know exactly what happened with his allegations. I'm not saying anything about his innocence or guiltiness, but it is not a coincidence that those allegations were brought up as soon as he went to go make a move in order to take control of the culture. Now, I work in marketing. A big thing that's happening right now is a shift. People aren't very interested too much in listening to what these major influencers have to say. Otherwise, Kamala Harris would have won that campaign with Meg Thee Stallion and Glorilla and Beyonce. What it is right now is micro influencers are doing the thing. These people that pick up their phones, they talk on TikTok, and they uh, you know, they create their own small followings of 10,000 to 50 to 100,000 people. Um, in music marketing, we have this thing where we can pay thousands of micro influencers to start a trend basically around the song. Now, what happens then is, say we have 1,000 people do it and use a certain hashtag. When you come back in a couple months, there might be 2,000, 3,000 uses of that hashtag. And basically to say most trends are artificial, and that the people that see these paid users and micro influencers using this hashtag don't realize that they're paid to do it, and they just hop on because they see the trend. If we can do something like that, we can organically um, or artificially stimulate, how Judge Joe was saying, making certain things cool and certain things uncool in order to have it catch on in popular culture. We can create and shape the culture the way that we want it to be, that will be beneficial to all people, not just Black people, but the populace itself, through marketing campaigns, because that's all they do to us. So we might as well use the same tactics. Um, so that's the culture and marketing part. The finance part, I do think we need a lobby. Um, again, learning from what the judge said, it doesn't have to just be Black, but a populist lobby. Because Elon Musk created the American First lobby, but again, I'm very big against the idol worshiping thing, and I feel like big figures like that, I don't want to get caught in what they're doing. I want to, again, like the panel is saying, create a populist movement that's ran by the people. If we can get a lobby of a group together to put money together to put into to stimulate the pockets of lawmakers and things like that, I think that'd be very powerful. Again, that's what the Jewish lobby like AIPAC is doing, or other lobbies. And all these politicians, senators, congressmen, um, they only follow what the money does. And if we can get some type of influence in that way, that'd be great. Now, to tie off and to finish this whole thing, it would tie into well, how do we stop this movement from being infiltrated from the inside out? Malcolm X was shot by his own people. Um, the Black Panther Party snitched on by somebody in the movement. These CIA coups, they use people that are in the country in order to infiltrate these governments. But how do we stop that from happening? Well, I think what we're moving towards right now, and this goes into like the last point, like I was saying about AI, What we're moving to now is they're trying to push us to a technocracy, which is basically ruled by technology, ruled by AI, surveillance state type of thing. But again, everything has an inverse. If we can use the same tools, we can free the people. And I think the way we do that is we can put this group or this populist movement on a smart contract. If anybody in here is familiar with smart contracts, how it works is basically, say I wanted to make a bet with a friend. We both put $5 into a contract over a cryptocurrency network, and say it's against the Patriots game. If the Patriots win, it's automatically going to get sent to my friend. If they lose, it automatically gets sent to me based on the rules that we implement onto this contract, and it's technology driven. So it's no more disputes on, oh, I'll give you that $5 later, or oh, but this happened, so I'm not going to give it to you. No, it's immediately based on the rules you put distributed. If we can do the same thing on the morals and foundation of the group and the way that the group moves, I think that that's a way to stop it from being infiltrated, because no longer will it be a leader gets taken out, a new puppet is installed, and they start spewing the rhetoric that they were put there to spew. It's, okay, this was the founding principles of the group, and it shall never change from this based on this smart contract. And everybody based on KYC verification, because in order to vote on certain things or in order to have a voice, you have to verify that you're an actual person. Everybody, their vote will be placed on the blockchain to vote for certain things. But the initial founding principles will never change via smart contract. And even if there's a membership fee, that's also a way we can go ahead and put money towards that lobby. But I don't know. That's a 3-part plan. I'm just drawing from what the judge is saying, taking notes, and trying to put something together. Because, man, I just don't want to take anything laying down. I want to put something together. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Did you want to say something, Judge?
Very interesting. Very interesting. I approve. I think those are some sound ideas, and it is what it is. Now, just keep thinking and keep moving and keep developing, and you help yourself out. We have got to get away from this idea of you are supposed to be stuck on stupid. 55 years ago, I saw a movement start that said men need to be turned from being reasonable, rational, logical, analytical, calculating, cold, and et cetera, and they need to become emotional, in touch with their inner feminine side. Now, we've got basically half the human race is female, and I think they supply all that we need from the estrogen side of things. But there are some severe consequences when you lose out on the testosterone side. So I think maybe we need to bring that back into balance. And there was a social experiment that was being put in place that did not work, and we have to speak against it, very much against it. So women are beautiful, to be protected, to be provided for, the way I look at it. Maybe that might offend some of them, but I don't care. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I do. And by the way, there are some very good looking women, if your pictures are the judge of things, on this site tonight. And I am a bachelor, by the way. But
All
I
right,
won't
can we
go
get to the
there.
next speaker? I want to get to Kanye.
I had to throw that in.
I would
Well,
like
this
to.
is, I don't think this is
I
the dating
understand,
thing,
Judge.
but go ahead, Kanye.
I understand, Judge. I understand. How you doing, Dana? What's going on, Judge?
How are you?
I'm
Yeah.
glad I was able to catch one of y'all spaces. So like the young lady said earlier, yeah, I definitely did vote for Trump. Just because of the policies, and as the title says, the borders are. I do think it's very important to understand that they actually brought in these people to replace us, right? And this round rejection the entire country gave them should have been a wake up call, but they're not going to take it that way. They decided to, as the Bible said, harden their hearts like Pharaoh did, and just double down, saying it was misogyny and racism. It's very interesting position to take, if you ask me. Um, this actually goes back into something the judge said earlier. It was a couple months ago, maybe even last year. We were in a space, and you were. I don't know if you remember this, Judge, but you were talking about how there was a professor. She was Russian, I think, and you said that the revolution won't be caused by any, um, it'll be caused by those, long-haired liberal men.
Oh, oh, oh,
And
oh. Can I give you what it
yes, sir,
was?
because I've been dying to
She
find that.
was talk. She was talking about. She was a visiting Russian professor from the University of Moscow. This was at the height of the Cold War, and I wound up being her teaching assistant. She said America is in grave danger of becoming a fascist country, not a communist one. She said, but it won't come from some jackboot wearing, goose stepping uniformed thugs. It will come from some pink panty wearing, long haired beatniks who would be happy to impose the worst methods of fascism to keep themselves safe and to keep you from not protecting yourself by going along with what they wanted. So, yeah, that's exactly what we've got.
What was her name? Because I was trying to research the hell out of that. I was like,
I'll tell you where you can find her. I won't mention her name because it'll trigger all kinds of
you can
algorithms.
DM it to me. I need to know this because I've been.
No, I'll tell you where you can
Yes, sir.
find her.
I'm listening.
Find the movie Enemy at the Gates. She is not the sniper. She is the woman that's on the barge at the very beginning of the picture where they're crossing the Volga and some of the Kamaraden are getting panicked and she's shooting a few of them in the back of the head to restore courage. That's the professor. She's also somebody who functioned as Nikita Khrushchev's deputy chief commissar at the Stalingrad siege, and she was awarded a Hero of the Soviet Union recognition. She also happened to be the highest ranking woman on the Soviet Politburo at one time, and she ran propaganda for the KGB and before that for the NKVD. And at one point, she had exactly three people she answered to: Chief Commissar Khrushchev, who became premier of the Soviet Union when he and Kennedy had that little set to over the Cuban Missile Crisis, to Comrade Beria, who ran the secret police, and to Joe Stalin, fearless leader. So those were the only three people she answered to at one point.
Yeah,
That's where that came
because I
from.
remember I was having a discussion, and I was saying to them, like, do you understand, like, because they were saying that Trump was a fascist, and I'm like, no, if you take a look at what the liberals doing, this is more so a fascist thing. And then, like, you know how you have like a recollection, I was like, wait, that's the same shit the judge was saying, the lady said. Excuse my language. The same thing the judge said, the lady was saying. And then the more I started to look at it from that angle, the more I started to see what they're doing is more so fascist than what they say Trump is doing. And how they push it is like, yo, this is exactly what the lady was saying. But I guess what I was asking you was, now that we've kind of reversed course on that, the entire nation has kind of reversed course on that. At least I think so. I know this liberal apparatus won't just go away, especially after listening to these clowns go for it at a couple weeks at a time. What do you think their next step would be? Because I'm trying to like game plan around that. Because right now I'm looking at the numbers came back, and I think 20% of black men voted for Trump, and I think 7% of black women voted for him. So we basically turned 27%, and I do think that it'll be more during the midterms, and then even more during the next presidency if they don't turn course. But what are some steps we could take? Because I've been listening to you on certain podcasts, and I watched an interview you did with Candace on. It's a beautiful interview, by the way. So I was just wondering, what do you think we should do?
Actually, just keep talking. That helps. See, 55 years ago, you could start a national fad or trend in America in 6 weeks. But the communications methodologies have changed since then. You don't need but 6 days to start one. And every now and then, what I do to test that theorem out is I'll put something out there. I don't tell anybody about it, but I see how long it takes for it to come back. And it starts coming back in 6 days all across the country. There's also a thing, too, that some people don't want you to know that. Like right now, it's interesting with the algorithms that we have operating You can see how many people are on this space. But if Musk gets on a space at the same time, we don't take anything away from him, but mysteriously, the attendance jumps up 10 or 12 fold over what it is indicating. And that is, maybe there's an algorithm out there that needs to be investigated, which is you don't want people to pay attention to stuff that's trending if you perceive that trend to be a negative one, because it upsets your propaganda stratagems. So that's what I think is going on. There's a lot of shadow blocking, by the way. There's a lot of things out there that aren't true. And I know I'll travel Baltimore, Minneapolis, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Miami, various places, and Atlanta, all through Georgia. I toured Georgia from North Carolina to Florida a couple of weeks ago to campaign for Mega. And you hear people talk about what they heard on these X spaces, and that they check out when Dana and I do this thing on Monday and Thursday. And the number of people who've actually said something to me about it exceeds the number of people that we're credited for having tuned in and looked at it. So something is bespeaking some statistical impossibilities or improbabilities at the very least. But talking is very effective. Doing is more effective. But right now, I think the doing is going to be negative because we're going to get some civil unrest between now and January, middle of January. And it's not going to be pretty because mainstream legacy media is trying to fire that engine up and get the steam up to pressure so it can get rolling.
Yeah, but have you noticed they've lost a lot of credibility? It's to the point.
Yeah, they have, but a lot of people don't care.
Yeah, but
They fervently believe in this. And I ran into a group of people just 2 weeks ago. I was in calling in, did somebody a favor. And these clowns were actually talking about the world was flat. And it was a lie. It wasn't a globe. Because you couldn't walk around a round thing in outer space. Like, excuse me, this is a flat earth, but they believe it. So there's no telling.
but see, but I was noticing with this particular election cycle, and I'm sorry, y'all, that looking at the numbers or whatever, right? I noticed that Trump did extremely well amongst the younger voters, and I think that's because of the legacy media's lack of influence these days. And I think now they only have influence over the most brainwashed of society. For example, you take a look at Trump did the Nelk Boys podcast, the Joe Rogan, and he did Theo Vaughn and Aiden Ross. Aiden Ross is basically a child. He just streams on Kick or something. And I just thought that was fascinating that he has more credibility with the public than the legacy media. And watching him this year, this specific week, right? I watched them say things they knew 3 weeks ago that they refused to say. They started speaking about how bad the campaign was and how her messages missed the mark. But if you just rewind the tape, they were talking about how brilliant it was and how she did great during the debate. But now they're talking about how bad she did. And I think the most damning picture of that was Anderson Cooper when he pressed her that day in the town hall. He would never done that at the beginning of the race. And so I'm just thinking, like, I wonder if they're going to kind of start reporting the truth to try to gain back something, or what do you see happening, Judge? And that's my last question.
I see what Anderson Cooper did as an effort to prompt her to be a little bit more focused than she was. Like, tomorrow will be unburdened by what has been. We've heard that, right? Something along those lines.
Poetic line.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous because you know what it does? Logically, when you say it, tomorrow will be unburdened by what has been. That's an oxymoron because it defeats and negates a thing called causality. Yesterday is what causes today and certainly tomorrow. So you cannot unburdened today by what happened yesterday, because you do nothing but burden your tomorrows by what you do during your todays or your yesterdays. So the whole thing was logical nonsense. You would have gotten a D or an F if you had answered that in a philosophy exam as an undergrad. It's just flunking. Absolutely incomprehensible that somebody would say that, not just slip of the tongue, but over and over and over and over as a speech policy, negating causality. That's like, we're not talking about quantum mechanics here. We're talking about something on the macro level where we're talking to people, not dealing down with the sub micro level. So it's like, what in the
Well,
world?
not to get too off topic, but you mentioned philosophy, and the thing is, with the Democratic Party, their biggest problem right now, I say, and this is deeper, but progressivism is postmodernism. Folks that
wait, give me a second, because I have to get to the other speakers. Just raise your hand and I'll swing back to you, because DMV, you had your hand up for a minute, and then go ahead, the DMV, and then El Hotep, and then I'll swing back to you, Chanel.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say that what I've noticed over time is that we're being sucked into what's easy. And what I mean by what's easy is, when I look, like, it wasn't really Kamala for me that made me think like, oh, it's a lot of bullcrap going on. It's what's been going on prior to Kamala. And I've come to an understanding that the black people, or the minority in this country, are preyed on to be less than. So when I talk to people in my community, their whole thing with Trump is they're gonna make me be somebody. I can't sit on my tail and collect funding. I can't do this. I can't not be proactive and have success. I have to actually work. I have to be educated. I have to get out here and get information and do what I have to do. And not, I don't know if it was Kanye or Dre, not to pick on whoever did it, but just like when Judge just said, when you asked about the lady, and he said, I'm not going to tell you her name. I'm going to give you the information to figure it out on your own. You didn't accept that. You said, nah, DM it to me. And that right
he
there.
didn't want to say the name, so I said
No,
DM
he
it.
didn't want to say the name, but
Yeah,
he
but DM
gave
is
you
not
an
saying
option to, I'm going to give you what you need.
DM is not saying. What are you talking about?
No. This is what I'm saying.
Man,
When you
look, I
ask
just said
him,
you could
when
just
you
DM
ask him for the name, and he said, I'm not going to say the name because it's going to create an algorithm or what,
Yeah,
whatever he was
saying and
saying.
DM is two different things.
So he said, so you said DM it to me. So what I'm saying is, he gave you an option to get the information. You wanted
If he
him
did
to
want to
give
say,
it.
he could have DM'd him, but he just says, hey, look, that's between me and him. I got nothing to do with you.
No, you're not understanding. You're not getting what I'm
No, I
trying
hear
to say.
exactly what you're saying. I just don't think it's
What I'm
important enough to
saying
say.
is, if I say, Judge, who was that?
Well, that's
And the
you, not
judge
me.
say, I'm not going to give it to you because of whatever reason. I'm going to
That's
give
not
you
what he said he wasn't going to say. He didn't say he wasn't going to give it. Now you adding stuff.
No, he said
Stick
he's
to what
not
he
going to
said.
say that name because of the algorithm.
Oh, gentlemen, if I can clear up the argument
Go
briefly,
ahead.
talking to some of my circle, some of whom have been involved in these things for a very long time, we were of the conclusion that if Donald Trump hadn't been elected, by next year this time, we'd all be in jail in a gulag someplace. Be assured that anything you send on DM, anything you put out there will be assessed. It's not going to be secure. And the reason I said look it up is because I don't want to trigger some algorithms. If I put the name out there, direct mail, anything, it's going to trigger a lot of algorithms. Now, I posted something this evening on X, and what it is an article, and it talks about how the Chinese have broken into our system through Verizon, through AT&T and some other entities, and they've read basically a whole lot of stuff that a lot of our elected officials, appointed officials have been sending each other, and also a lot of private individuals who use these services. And essentially, they've just about acquiesced the entirety of our communications if they choose to use it. So they are hooked up with trying to get intelligence on who are their people or who associated with them has been spying on them. Is counterintelligence, and they'll trade the information. So if they've got it, other people have it too. So you have to be very cautious. When we're talking about doing what we're doing, we can't just be open anymore. They'll kill you or put you in jail, or they'll put a Letitia James or a Fannie Willis after you, or a Bragg after you, or this clown who's the U.S. attorney up in New York after you.
No, I totally
Yes, sir.
understand.
I
I don't
understood.
know.
I think he just trying to nitpick because I didn't
I
understand
didn't.
what you was meaning at the time, and I thank you for clearing it up at the moment when you said, "No, I'll just give it to you." It wasn't that big a deal. I understood exactly
No,
what
no,
you
no.
meant
I
when you said that.
wasn't.
I'm
I
not
was
talking to you. I
just.
was talking to the judge.
I'm just
I understood
speaking
exactly what you meant
on.
when you said it,
I'm
Judge.
speaking on the
He just cleared
willingness.
it up. There's no need to talk about it. I'm talking to
No,
him,
I
but I
wasn't.
understood exactly what you were saying, Judge.
It's not a. I
Hey,
wasn't
man, let
unclear on
dude
what the
speak.
judge was saying. All I.
Gentlemen, you don't need to explain it to each other. It just
No, I
makes it more
wasn't. I
complicated.
wasn't trying to explain anything.
You
I
just
was
want
just
to
trying
sound
to.
good. You just
I
trying to
was
make somebody
pointing
look bad.
out something that I felt as though is one of the issues that
We
we have
grown
to
men. What you think
overcome.
about it? Don't tell me how you
That's
feel.
all. That's all I was saying. When he.
Gentlemen, be nice to each other. You may have to work with
No,
each
I'm
other.
sir.
Okay.
There's no malice. There's no malice on this, and I don't know if he was offended by what I said, but
No, it just didn't make sense. Like,
you. Okay.
Okay.
Can I finish my thought?
yeah, you make your point without using me as an example, please.
What I'm saying is, when someone is giving someone an opportunity
He goes right back to
to
it.
get information, we have to take full responsibility and take charge of that. I'm not picking on you, bro. I'm not trying to single you out or
You can't
nitpick.
pick on me. It's ridiculous.
I'm not doing any of that.
Brothers,
What
please. Come on now.
what all I'm
Back at pace.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to El Hotep, and then swing back to Chanel. El Hotep, you got mute.
All right, my bad. Hey Dana, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I had a question for both of y'all. Dana, my question for you is Jersey going to be a swing state going into 2028 and 2026? Because it looked like it might be. Um, so I want to know just on your end, just because you live in Jersey, if you think it might be a swing state. And then my question for the judge was that he had seen some of the comments made by Jamie Raskin on the 14th Amendment and how it applies to certifying the election. A friend of mine were having a conversation, and he has stated that he doesn't think the Democrats are going to certify the election based off of those comments that he has made. He basically said that based off of the January 6th impeachment saga, that Trump is disqualified from being president. So since the Supreme Court doesn't want to certify, or they don't want to handle the case, they're going to kick basically the can down the road to the Congress, and basically that's how that could play out. I just wanted to find out the judge's legal thoughts on that, because I like I said to a friend of
Okay,
mine,
easy,
I just don't think they personally
easy
have
enough.
enough votes. So I don't think it will work.
Easy enough. The big issue is not going to be Trump. It's going to be California. Federal law prohibits anyone who's not a non-citizen from voting in a federal election. California, by Newsom, had signed into law a statute that said it's a criminal offense to demand an identification from a prospective voter. So they commingled the federal and the local ballots, and they have folk who are in California who can vote for local elections, even if they are illegals and non-citizens. So since you don't know who, the big issue is going to come in as to whether or not California's 58 electoral college votes are going to be countable. That's going to be a real issue. I don't know if they can get beyond it, but they might ignore it. As to what you have with Trump, he hasn't even been sentenced yet. There's likely to be a quick grant of some kind of action by the U.S. Supreme Court to consider the matter. The next thing is it's going to be in the House of Representatives. And even though the vice president can vote to break a tie, it ain't there yet because that is not what the balance is in the House anymore. The Republicans have it. As of right now, that will be the count, not the one that will be sworn in after this Congress is through. So there's not any pathway unless there are a number of Republicans that decide to defect, which is unlikely right now, considering the massive landslide. Additionally, you're going to get some states involved in this because they do have electors on the board of electors / the electoral college that represent their states. And if somebody were to do this, their will be thwarted. So you can count on various states becoming party to any action that's filed. And if the state decides to file it relative to the United States government or another state, it goes directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. It does not go to an intervening court. So this would be expedited. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, you have talk about Biden immediately resigning and Kamala becoming the president. Well, under law, you have to get a new vice president. So you would have to have the House okay, Kamala becoming president, okay, or at least confirming the process, and then picking a vice president, which is likely to get a lay, which puts everything past January 6th, when the Electoral College will be showing up to cast its votes. So I think there might be a problem, but not the one that people anticipate. And the other thing is, realistically, he has not been sentenced and he has not had an appeal. And if what I saw the 5-member New York appellate tribunal deal with Letitia James on the civil matter, it ain't going anywhere at all. And I can say, as a jurist for 50 years, longer than anybody who's involved in this mess has been involved, that decision by that idiot who was the judge in this case, where the so-called 34 convictions came up, was just incomprehensibly stupid. One, he shouldn't have been on the case. Two, he had at least 2 conflicts of interest, his daughter and his wife. 3, he made an inappropriate instruction of law to the jury, which under American law means there was no verdict because the jury didn't get the law. And what that was, Donald Trump is supposed to have paid money to hush a criminal offense, and the state was not required to prove an underlying criminal offense. There was none charged in spite of multiple requests that such be done. So the charges are totally deficient. So that case is going absolutely nowhere.
Oh,
So I think it's a
and
smokescreen. But I do see some riots
Yeah.
occurring.
and to answer the question that you asked me, El Hotep, do I see New Jersey going red nationally? Maybe. It depends on who is the next Republican candidate. Because I don't think Trump. Well, after this, he's not going to be running for any office, but it's a big possibility if the next person who is running for president has the, I would say, I'm just going to say swag that can start convincing people, particularly younger people in New Jersey. And also, there are a lot of Latinos, Hispanics, whether they're immigrants or illegal migrants in New Jersey, particularly in the northern area, because the northern east part around the tri-state area is typically blue. But I think when you see a increase of Hispanics and was particularly Latinos, because it is a difference between Latinos and Hispanics. But when you start seeing an increase, you start seeing different political voting habits, because a lot of those individuals, the Latinos, and some Hispanics, they are entrepreneurs and they open up businesses and they employ a lot of people. But on a local level, especially when it comes to the governor, New Jersey flips sometimes. They have been red. We had Chris Christie for 2 terms straight. And then now we have what's his name? Governor whatever. He's a Democrat. I think this is his first or second term or whatever. And FYI, I moved out of New Jersey 2 years ago, but I was just there this past weekend, so I still, keep up to date with what is going on. And in Newark, particularly, because that's the largest city in New Jersey, there was some black men who started a pro-Trump MAGA rally to get people to register as Republicans and to vote for Donald Trump. So if they keep up that momentum, definitely New Jersey is a big possibility to turn red. So it all depends on a candidate, but it always flips red, blue to governor. So
Now, if I might interject something, Miss Dana, since I wanted you to give that answer, I anticipated you would. There's one other factor. What is this with all of these illegals who have been bussed into New York and other places that you would call the battleground states? Why is it now that we've had this election, we see New Jersey and New York talking about shipping these illegals back to Texas to stuff them back under the shirt of the Texas governor who sent them up there? Well, they wanted them up there. Why? Under American law, as it is right now, if Harris Imhoff had been elected president, she would have been entitled to pardon all of these people who committed federal felonies by harboring or giving aid and comfort to federal fugitives, which by definition includes those who crashed the border. She could blanket pardon the border crashers and the people who gave them aid and comfort or harbored them and set up sanctuary cities. And as chief diplomat, she would also have the authority under the statutory law that we have to have set a date, let's say January 2021, that's 3 years ago, as a date wherein effective that date, anyone who came in time indeterminate would be declared a refugee and granted asylum status. Now, if they're granted asylum status, what happens is they automatically become citizens in 5 years without having to go through all of the changes that ordinary immigrants go through about acquiring citizenship. That means when we come up upon 2026, when the midterm elections will be arriving, all of these people will now be automatically citizens of the United States, residing in these particular crucial states, the so-called blue wall, which crumbled this last election, and they will be able to vote. So it would be an opportunity for the Democratic Party, was supposed to be an opportunity for the Democratic Party to have captured these critical states and made the Democrats effectively the only party that mattered, because they would be able to overwhelm the House and such senators as came up for election in 2026 in November. So when they were sworn in 2027, there would be an absolute Democratic majority in the House and Senate, which would set the stage for, at that time, uh, shoring up all of the support that a Harris Waltz administration would have wished for. So that's what I think they had in mind. And we see that they're trying to send them back when that's not going to work, because
well, who
the
said they were sending?
sacrifice
I don't. They're
is
not.
not working.
I think a lot of times what we're seeing now, we're seeing a lot of news outlets that are creating these talking narratives. Um,
Well, they may be, but I
Well,
think
no, the
they're,
Human
from
guy
what
said he's
I'm
gonna send
reading
them
up
all
there.
back, regardless of.
no, no,
No, they're
no.
talking. No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about Trump. get away from thinking about Trump. This is something that is being motivated right now by the consideration that, hey, we can't pull this off. Well, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get to declare these folk to be immigrants who have a refugee status and granted asylum status, so that they can automatically vote in 5 years when they become citizens in 5 years, which would be just before the next midterm election. That's what
Oh,
they
okay, I
Right.
see what you're
So
talking
anticipate.
that
about. So that
was
way they can
can
vote.
everybody
So
please stay on
right
your mic?
now,
Please stay on
since
your mic.
that's falling,
So
listen, right now, since that's falling through, some of these people, forget the newspapers, this is actual manipulations politically, would like to send some of these people back to Texas and other locations, Florida, so they can farm them off because they're here, and now they don't want them because they perceived an advantage to come in 2 years to have it.
well, what?
This is
Yeah. But I don't really
strategizing.
think that's it. I don't. They're not. And that again,
Well,
there's no
I
proof
do.
that Mayor Eric Adams or any other sanctuary city is literally sending them back to Texas. However, what is
They're talking
talking
about it.
about it and doing it is two different things. And Mayor Eric
There's
Adams, he
been
does a
some not
conference every day,
politics
which
is
I
the
listen
same
to.
thing.
He's not doing that. However, what they are trying to do now, particularly Mayor Eric Adams, and now all of a sudden the mayor of Chicago is starting to talk about what a Trump administration will look like for the illegals that he have in his city. Because we're talking about sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. They're not going to get any more money. So they're going to allow to a certain degree. So let me just say this to kind of prove or add on to your point. They're not getting any more federal funding under the Biden administration, and they're definitely not going to get it under the Trump administration. So it's like, okay, we need to clear some of these people off of our budget, these illegals, because they cut the food stamps in New York. So is it true? No, not true, but is it a possibility that they might be shipping them to these red states? Because these red states, such as Florida and Texas, they're definitely going to ship them back over that border. So that could be one of their way of offsetting and then clearing off their budget. However, they're already starting to cut a lot of these programs that they was dishing out because the Biden administration was giving them billions of dollars. And now Mayor Eric Adams, he publicly said it. He congratulated Trump and he's looking forward to work with him. But he is not going to kick out all of the illegals. So it's it's not what they are going to try to protect a lot of these illegals, and it is to the Democrat benefit as far as the more, but not voting, but as far as the more bodies that you have in a district, the more representation you are allotted. So
Well, try this one. They were going to throw Eric Adams under the bus because he had a lot of people who were against him due to the illegal situation in New York City. He does have a lot against him. But what happens is he now has an incentive, since their election strategy was way off kilter and it was a landslide against them. He might have it in himself to collaborate with the new administration, because guess what? This U.S. attorney in New York City is not going to be the U.S. attorney under the Trump administration. There will be a new one. And they might just decide to dismiss the charges against Eric Adams if they are instructed to do so by the Attorney General of the United States, who works under the
right. So
President
then
of the
so
United
right,
States.
right, absolutely. So if that's the
And
case,
what I
then
was
the
saying,
Trump
but
administration
wait
is
a minute,
great. Let me
one
just say
little
this because that is a great point, because if that's the case, of course Trump administration is going to say, we get rid of these charges for you, then don't get in our way when we come in and clear a house to get rid of the illegals.
well, hold on. Let me give you one thing. I'm making a prediction. You're going to see a lot of the so-called sanctuary cities trying to divest themselves of these illegals that they have, because there's no longer any utility
Right,
to
they're
it.
not getting any more money.
Harris and Waltz. No, it's not money. Harris and Waltz did not win. So there's nobody in place to pardon
Right, that
everybody,
too.
nor to make these illegals refugees, which come
Right,
in
there's no
under asylum
incentive
status.
either way all around it. The 360, there's
Yeah,
no incentive storm.
in other words, there was money, but there was also gain to be had in the sacrifice, where some of these elected officials didn't give a damn about the people they represented. They just wanted a hegemony when you can come in and have a uniform, universally powerful Democratic Party that you could not challenge. That's what they anticipated, and they're not going to get it. So now they're trying to divest themselves of the inexorable expense of putting all these illegals up.
I want to go to Chanel, and then I'm gonna go to Walter.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys. Interesting stuff. I mean, so we were talking about something else when I was talking earlier, but as you talk about this, what they're going to do with the migration, I mean, presently I'm in Ohio. I live in Massachusetts though, and Massachusetts has a major migrant crisis, and it's not spoken about a lot in mainstream media, but it's major. We have it's huge. I mean, like, you're seeing stuff you never saw in Massachusetts before. You're seeing foreign mothers and child on the streets of Massachusetts, like, begging. And I never saw that before in all the 15 years I've lived in Massachusetts. It's wild. And then we have dozens of hotels that have been, they call them Healy hotels. Governor Healy, essentially, we have a policy where people who, children have a statutory right to housing, but they've expanded that to cover migrants. So it's been a draw for migrants. And so we have like dozen plus hotels that are filled up with migrants. And then we have Logan Airport that has people that's sleeping there. We have the train stations. It's pretty bad. And the question now is, what are we going to do now that I think our governor was on a campaign trying to get a position in the Harris administration, and she failed clearly. And she was neglecting all the criticism she was getting back home about the migrant crisis. And now she's saying she's not gonna comply with the governor. I think she's in big trouble. I think she's certainly going to be a one-term governor. I think that's pretty much clear. She's going to be one term. People are really pissed off about it. Democrats and the small minority of Republicans, and the small but growing number of Republicans or independents. And so what are we going to do? So she's right now trying to say, oh, we're not going to comply. We're not going to apply. He's the dictator, blah, blah, blah. But it's unsustainable. You know, we're spending multiple, like, hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, we're $700 million over budget right now, projected over budget right now for just shelter, not to mention like housing, not to mention like the transportation, etc. So what are they going to do? They don't have any real use for the people. I mean, here's what I would say. There's some people that think, oh, they just care so much. They have such big hearts. They do not care. Because when you see Haitians and all these other and Venezuelans or whatever, all these different people that are sleeping on the sidewalks, you're like, this is not caring. Why are they here sleeping on our streets? This is not caring. Or when they're in when they're in these like D-list hotels, and with all these violations, and there's been rapes that have happened there. They keep it very quietly, but there's some that are coming out because of, thankfully, ICE reports this stuff even when our local media does it. So, and then they get out in $500 bond. Like, there have been people who've gotten, foreign nationals who raped children and got out on $500 bond, like crazy stuff. So I don't think they really care. They're virtue signaling, and they're focused on power. And so what are they going to do? I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but I think they're going to try to find a way to get rid of them, because they're not going to get any money from the Trump administration, but they don't want to look like they didn't care. So they're going to find a way to kind of make it someone else's fault, but really this is what they were pushing for. So that's what I have to say.
Very good. Very good.
Walter.
Good evening, Dana and Judge Brown. I am very excited to have this new administration come in and clean house. I think that all the propaganda we're hearing about reparation and all that, that's, of course, stuff like that's going to take place. This is the only election I've ever known that I've had friends distance themselves from me, which I tell them I separate personal life from politics and religion, and it doesn't matter what, how they do, but I do know that the mayor of Adams out of New York, he's trying to prepare himself to try to get some type of pardon from Trump. Is one of the reasons why he's saying what he's saying. I've kind of seen that on the news about getting the immigrants out of there, and a lot of people going to be.
Is he talking? I can't hear
A lot
anything.
of folks going to be jumping ship from being.
Yes, he is talking. If you can't hear, just drop down and I'll bring you right back up.
A lot of
Okay.
folks are going to jump ship from the Democrats because a lot of people don't understand the concept of loyalty. You can have all the brains in the world, but when pressure, they always say when pressure hit, bust a pipe. Press bust a pipe. So when pressure on, a lot of people with all the intelligence they got, they start switching up. We're gonna see a lot of that. I've been for Trump the past 2 elections. Now I voted for Hillary the first time because I just didn't really realize, what we were dealing with. But I like the fact that he's a man, and whatever he puts in his mind, he does. And I'm just very excited about all this, and I'm looking forward to working with everybody that's trying to work with the Republicans. And I'm just going to land there.
Oh.
Let me make a comment. I want people to consider it. This is not a lie about the cats getting eaten and stuff, or at least partially eaten. Nobody's barbecuing them, putting sauce on them. What it is if you kill the cat, sacrifice the cat. To make the sacrifice, you have to eat some of the flesh. Then you get the 9 lives, or you get immunity to police bullets. It's voodoo, hoodoo, whatever. It's superstition. It's part of the whole process. We have these things occurring for reality. I want to prime people for a physiological fact. You're going to get a very ramp spike in rapes committed by these people because these are young men who have come a long way, and they are not bringing women with them. They don't have a woman for the most part, and their sexual thing is coming down on them. The Jones is coming down on them, and they're going to be getting desperate. And I predict that there is going to be a spike in rapes that is going to occur in a few weeks because of this. So there are going to be some serious consequences to bringing these people in. And by the way, they're not migrants. You're only a migrant if you're legal. If you're not legal, you are an invader. If you did not honor the customs and laws of the border in question and you crashed it, you are an invader. You were not invited in. You didn't get a guest pass. You did not get a polite invitation. You did not get a polite acceptance. You broke the law. You are an invader. And that's what we have, just to make sure that people understand that.
Okay.
Now, pass the mic.
I'm a DMV, then I'm going to swing back to El Hotep.
Okay, what I wanted, Dana, based on what you were saying, what I wanted to ask you is, are you saying that realistically nobody's going back? And if that's the case, are these people going to be vetted in any kind of way based on what Judge just said? I know you have to come through what's called like a port of entry. You have to do applications. You have to do all of this whole process. So if nobody did that, are these people, if you're saying that they're not going to be sent back, so like what happens? Do they get prosecuted? Do they have to be vetted? Like what's going to happen with these people?
Well, I didn't say they wasn't going to be sent back over the border. I was saying these sanctuary city mayors are not, we don't know for sure if they're sending them to red states, but if they are, those people in the red states are sending them back over to the border.
Okay, so they will be getting sent back
Well,
across
they're
the
going to be
border.
get sent back under the Trump administration. The judge mentioned how is one of the news reports came out saying that they are sending them to Florida and Texas. And well, why are you doing that? Well, maybe because if you send them to those states, you're going to be shit back sooner than when Trump gets sworn in back in January. So they're
Okay.
going to be sent away. It's mass deportations is coming. It's a matter of how and if the sanctuary city officials are going to be cooperating with the Trump administration. And it's more of an incentive in the best interest for Mayor Eric Adams to cooperate with Trump because, like the judge said, new federal district attorneys, and he's already under federal investigation, and that could all go away.
He's
Well,
been
he's
indicted
been indicted,
on
yeah.
4 counts in 53-page indictment, just 4 counts, which usually in the federal system would be 2 pages, maybe 3. So it's all kinds of surplusages in there. But let me give you one of the fallout.
He like took some money, right?
Well, yeah, that's an allegation. He took gratuities or he spent too much money or whatever.
Okay.
But let me give you a fallout on this. The justification that was being given by the Democratic Party across the board was there were all of these jobs that were unfilled, so we needed these migrants in to fill these jobs nobody wanted. That's a lie. The reason we have such a severe and effective schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline is because the criminal justice system has quite some time ago morphed from being a crime control device to a labor control device. Think of labor as a commodity like wheat, corn, or cotton. When you get a glut, that means there's too much of that commodity, whether it's pork, beef, whether it's soybeans, corn, wheat, whatever. So what they do is 3 things. They take the surplus and they store it. Grain silo, warehouse, or jail cell. If it's a people thing where the labor units are the commodity, you subsidize the would-be producer, whether that is giving out a welfare check to people, or you give the farmer a check for letting the land lie fallow, or you get into the next one, cutting back production, you just don't grow it, or you sit there and you cut it back by having hip hop, wrong kind of ideation, no vocational skills, no academic proficiencies, wrong worldview, wrong lifestyle, acting a fool, making where you live an island of chaos with no ability to come up with politically cohesive self-help through the political process. You put everybody in jail, and then you get a huge market for providing food, clothing, shelter, transportation, security, and communications for the inmates. And you work them not so much to benefit from their free labor, but to keep them busy and out of mischief. So we find that this is a lie about needing workers for unfilled jobs, when that is just a dodge, because the effect of it is to ramp up the need for penitentiaries for those people who are native to the country. In other words, they're citizens, because there aren't enough jobs to go around, and you want to get rid of them, and you want to deal with ridding yourself of this excess population, which is essentially in a non-productive status. So that's what's going on in the big picture. We've got a big lie being told, and it would have been very, very ineffective for the country. Now, I passed them some other stuff.
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah.
I hear you.
To the lady who was speaking, I guess she's from Boston. I seen this problem in California. Most times you got to get rid of those state prosecutors and attorneys on a local level who don't hand over those cases to like immigration and stuff like that. Because I had a friend of mine who was who got caught up in a situation like that, and long story short, the person was in the country illegally. They ultimately didn't get sent back because the state didn't hand the case over to ICE or to immigration. So a lot of the times when you have these sanctuary cities and these sanctuary states, you got to look up who's the DA, who's the state prosecutor and stuff like that. If they're pro sanctuary city or pro sanctuary state, you got to get them out. Um, Judge, I wanted to find out your thoughts on the city of Downey. They recently banned the pride flag, so I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And I wanted to. There was one more. Oh, do you think Trump could potentially be the Reagan of our era on a global level and domestic?
I think he's got the potential for being a lot more than Ronald Reagan. A lot more. More like FDR. I know he's the boogeyman these days. More like LBJ. And I think he'll be one of the great ones because he's got some stuff to straighten out. That is something we need to deal with. Now, there's some other stuff in here that needs to be addressed, and it's not really apparent, but there's some behind the scenes stuff that is really, really bad about what's been going on. And I don't want to tie up by changing the course right now. I might get on it a little bit later this evening, but I'll come back to this. It's a real live mess out there. And we have a problem with places like California. I'll come back to California. I have a problem with California's franchise tax board. I haven't lived there in 10 years. I haven't had any income in the state in close on to 8. But every damn year, they go through this thing of claiming the same amount of tax from the same year in the past. And for at least 5 years, I have gone through the process of negating what they claim I owe for the same year. But the problem is though they release all holds, I still have to spend out thousands of dollars in attorney fees and accountant fees to get the matter handled, which is ridiculous because they're so goddamn flat broke busted that they are desperately trying to extort anybody they can. So they threaten to seize the bank accounts, and due to the fact that you have these ubiquitous banks, Bank of America, Regions, Wells Fargo, and such like, where they have branches in most of the states, they can reach deposits that you have in another state by seizing assets through one of the banks that's located and able to do business in California. So they seize thousands of dollars from people who are innocent, not liable for any wrongdoing, owe absolutely no taxes, but they keep the money for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 months, earn interest on it, and keep California working while they're stealing other people's money. And it is absolutely ridiculous what they're doing. I
So,
pass the mic.
all right. I say I don't go past midnight. Anybody else want to request to come up, please do so now. If not, people could give their last words and we could just end early.
He didn't answer about Downey banning the pride flag.
Oh, the pride flag. I
Yeah,
forgot.
because they want to take it to the
I want to
California
tell Joe
Supreme
Brown, I
Court.
appreciate that information. I have a company in California I've had for 2 years. Thank you for that information.
Let me put something to you. Can you put a Christian cross in a school or a city hall or paint it on the sidewalk or the crosswalk? Can you do that for the Islamic crescent? Can you do that for the 6-pointed Jewish star? Hell, can you do it for a Johnny Red stars and bars flag? Can you do that for a 6-armed Shiva? Can you do that for Buddha? No, you can't. So how do these folk get away with putting down and emblazoning a symbol of a cult on public property? See, that's where
And
the
Supreme
farce
Court just
comes in.
ruled that the state of Alabama cannot put the 10 Commandments in classrooms.
That's right. So if you can't do that, then how the devil do you get away with a state embracing the symbol of an official cult that they're trying to adopt, where they're spreading the imagery of this cult all up and down the hallways in elementary, middle, or junior high schools and high schools, where they're put all over state capitol buildings, where they're on crosswalks, they're on sidewalks, they're on flagpoles hanging illegally right below the American flag. The White House is painted in the colors. You can't have anything that deals with Christianity on a damn Easter egg for the ceremonies, outside of the White House, but you can have the rainbow symbol. What in the devil is going on here? See? And we need to attack these things the same way that they have attacked putting religious symbols in public buildings. The same exact laws apply. All you have to do is change the names. But we don't do that because we perceive a helplessness to the matter. You've got a thing with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. Twitter has been morphed into X, so you're getting automatic improvements thanks to Musk. But the rest of them, they need to be drug into court. Trump needs to appoint a strong FCC who will hold them to the carpet about equal time, about stopping this politicization of what's going on with the message, and also dealing with the fact that they do impact interstate communications and commerce. Now, what does that do? Well, if you can drag some poor guy out of Denver, Colorado, in front of the United States Supreme Court because he wouldn't make a cake or wedding cake for a certain kind of couple, if you can drag somebody in front of the U.S. Supreme Court because they can't discriminate against somebody when it comes to making out websites for them because of their particular persuasion, that is something that interferes with or impacts interstate commerce or communications, which is exactly how they impose civil rights on everybody. If it impacts interstate communications and commerce, then it's actionable, and nobody can even, with a straight face, utter the words that Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc., do not impact interstate worldwide communications, and somebody needs to haul their behinds in and jack them up. The law is clear, but nobody will do it. So we've got a lot
we
of
have a
stuff
new.
to do. Maybe Trump's administration can join in and file some of these actions.
I want to go to Bob.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to join the conversation. Judge, I think you touched on something, and with the last question and your response to it, that I would simply ask all of us to remember, and that while we have to deal with the fact that there are people who are doing these things and who have sort of embraced evil as opposed to good, that the Lord teaches us in the scripture that our warfare is not against human beings or flesh and blood. It is against principalities and powers and spiritual forces of wickedness in high places. And that's actually the fight against that is a spiritual one. And as long as we continue to try to fight something that is based in the spiritual realm using human means, then we are going to lose. But if we begin to embrace the good that the good Lord has given to us and get back to our roots as a nation that was founded on Christian principles and really begin to believe it, and more importantly, believe Him, then I think we'll be on the right track. And that's the comment, and I'd like to hear what y'all have to say about that. Thank you.
That's what I said right up front. We've got a situation where we've got a cult, the rainbow cult, not just gay folk, but rainbow cult, that is trying to impose itself as the official faith of the United States of America. We cannot embrace Christianity. We can't embrace Islam. We can't embrace Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, or anything, but we are embracing this filthy cult of the rainbow. And we have to attack it because it's a peculiar cult. Unlike every other religion or cult, whether it is pagan, whether it is monotheistic, whether it's Christian, it doesn't make any difference. Every other single philosophy has tried to see to the business of imposing good character on the humans that it influences. And this one, this rainbow cult, does not. It is, in essence, something that stands for the negation of character. No duty, no honor, no principle, no courage, no bravery, no forthrightness, no accountability, no answerability, no dependability, no concern for making where you are a better, safer, more secure place filled with economic prosperity, sense of purpose, no morality nor ethics, is exemplified by their clarion call of riddance of guilt and shame, no guilt tripping, no shaming. These things are an anathema to them, and these things are what keep human beings acting with good character. We completely abandoned the concept of making where you live a better, safer, more secure place that is filled with public peace, dignity, and order, where the people can be brave and courageous when necessary, but men and women of peace otherwise. These things go out of the window because they want to overturn everything because they feel like they've been left out. And not only do they feel left out, they hate themselves for what they think they are, and they're not willing to accept the call that they're either man or woman. And commensurate with that, there are some duties, honors, and obligations that are unique to each particular gender or sex. And they do not want to accept that. They want to reject the call that Mother Nature, God, whatever you want to call it, the gods, or just general philosophy is put upon their shoulders throughout the extent of humanity's sojourn on this planet. And they don't like it. So we have to do something about that. Now, it's our duty to impose righteousness again. We have to before it all goes down the tubes.
Well,
Now, I pass the mic.
let me just add on to that, because I understand when you said the quote unquote cult, but the problem that I have is a lot of times people don't know how to how you pronounce that word, deficiate. Can you pronounce it for me, Judge?
Differentiate.
Differentiate
Yeah.
between a person who just so happened to be gay or whatever and a cult. And see, a lot of times people marry the two. I have I have friends, well, a friend, I don't have many friends, but who, who is upstanding, who is morally sound, who is a man, who has moral and values, so, and he just so happened to be gay. But I'm not going to ever put him in that box of being demonic, of being less than. Um, and he is very conservative, and and he is a Christian. So if someone
I can offer
no,
one.
let me finish. Let me
I can
finish.
offer. Okay.
So if someone, is a part of the LGBTQ community, that doesn't mean that they subscribe to the agenda and quote unquote cult that is trying to push this indoctrination, particularly onto children. And so that's the issue that I have, and just kind of responded to Bob's points. Well, he asked for our opinions. It's just that a lot of people
Okay.
like to let me
Try
finish.
this one.
A lot of people,
If
a
you're
lot of
Christian, does
can
that
I
mean you
finish?
supported
Can I
reverend?
finish? Can I finish?
Okay, I
Can I
thought you
finish?
had been.
No,
Go
I'm not
ahead,
finished
finish.
yet. I'm not
I
finished.
thought you were. Go
So
ahead.
a lot of people like to marry the two. Just because somebody is gay, that doesn't mean that they are the antichrist. That no one can't sit up here and judge someone and say, well, you're living in sin or you're living that way. And that's the That's the issue that I have. People marry the two. Now I'm finished.
Okay, well, Christianity says no one is without sin, but you try to overcome it by some degree or modicum of righteousness in the interim. But that said, just because you are gay does not mean you embrace this rainbow cult. No more so than if you were Christian, you embraced Reverend Jim Jones and drinking strange Kool-Aid at large Guyanan church picnics. It does not
I
mean
know.
that
I'm
you were
saying
a
that some
member of.
people cannot separate the two.
Well, I'm getting ready to right now. It doesn't mean that if you're a Christian, you supported Branch Davidian. It doesn't mean if you're a Muslim that you support Al Qaeda and ISIS. You see, you have these extremes. It does not mean just because you are one thing that you are another. And actually, it's an unholy alliance. It started out years ago as lesbians, bisexuals, and gays. So what you wound up with now is LGB. Now you have T, transsexual. Now you have all the way in LGBTQ, queer and questioning. LGBTQIA, which is I is intersectional, et cetera, and then A is all. And what you get is a lot of gay folk, particularly lesbians, don't like trannies because, like one lesbian told me, she likes pretty young girls and she doesn't want to find out one of them she's been angling on has a dick. She doesn't like that, nor does she like the idea of boys competing in girls' sports. And when you get down to the intersectionality, that means you start dealing with predation, pedophilia upon children, where children become part of this equation. And you get NAMBLA, North American Man Boy Love Association, which has gone underground, but still has such things as the third from the bottom feature for BLM, which is age is no longer a factor in sexual consent, which opens the door to pedophiles, which are sick puppies. And then you have a lot of gay folk, lesbian and gay guys, who remember unfondly some pedophile molesting them when they were children. So most decent forms of anybody are against including children in the sexual equation. And they think that you should not bring these subjects up with children when they are exclusively sexual. And the other thing is everything has its place. Keep it in your bedroom, get your freak on, and don't take it outside. You have
Take
floats
what
in gay
outside?
pride. You're getting ready to hear. You don't have floats in a gay pride parade where you got naked men up there and some damn fool female telling her child, honey, go up there and pull the man's thing. He wants you to pull on it. That's indecency, public indecency. Everybody involved ought to be locked up, ranging all the way from contributing to the delinquency of a child molestation, all sorts of things, public lewdness, open and notorious, etc. And these things are not permissible. I don't care what kind of sexuality is involved. So you've got people that just want to be decent, even if they do have homosexual practices. But the point is, nobody's got any business being in anybody else's bedroom as long as somebody's not getting physically damaged and there's no rape involved.
So let me
So
just add this on to it. Well, and include this in the equation, because when you say it started off with just LGB LGB, and then they added on a T. That was for public policies when we're talking about a lot of people in the community being discriminated. They couldn't work, they couldn't get life insurance, they couldn't get health insurance on a local, state level, and on a federal level. So that their organization it started out, and it was, and it is, and continue to be for the purpose of public policies. And every single group have a right to advocate for themselves, for their group, for public policies, to make sure that the Constitution is protecting them in their needs and they're able to be a part of society and survive. And that is one thing that the organizations do. They advocate for public policies, definitely on a local level and on a federal level. The problem comes into play, and you mentioned it, is when you start saying, as an administration, let's allow, whether it's on state or federal, allow transgenders in girls sports, is you end up crossing a line. And it seems, and that's part of the quote unquote cult, which is led by these politicians. Now, if maybe they're being influenced by certain organizations, but overall, when you cross the line of trying to indoctrinate or trying to push something onto people, that is a problem. No, you should not be talking about anal, how to have proper anal sex to grade schoolers. And in high school, yes, you learn about sex ed, but now they're trying to teach sex ed, of any type of sex. Not, I don't care if it's heterosexual sex, that should not be taught to grade school and younger kids. So if we're, and it's like everyone just want to throw LGBTQ on that, but they're doing a lot of stuff across the board that is inappropriate. When we talking about pedophilia, um, when maybe, yes, definitely in California, they passed a law on the city council, I think in San Francisco, so that people who are pedophiles are not prosecuted. It was that SB whatever of a law. That's a problem. So you have these pockets of people that try to implement these cult like policies or institutions or way of life onto people, especially when you're talking about kids. But the same pushback, or the same adversities that we have against certain LGBTQ policies, we did also need to look at it when it's for people who are non-LGBTQ, because a pedophile is a pedophile whether you're gay or not. Molestation is molestation whether you're gay or not. And that's not even being talked about. Children are not even being protected, period. So there's a lot of things that need to change, but it's just particularly funny and scary that certain particular administrations, such as the Biden-Harris administration, they are trying to indoctrinate children, particularly in a community that they don't even claim. That's the problem. But a lot of times, going back to what I originally said, people want to single out individuals who are bisexual, who are lesbian, who are gay, or who are even transgender, just trying to live their life. So,
Okay.
go ahead.
Oh, well, all right. What you're dealing with is a political expediency. We studied it in law school. 1972, they had the Gay Rights Manifesto that was spread then. They had a convention on gay rights in 1972, and they issued a manifesto. One of them that was particular was states recommended states action clause 6, which had to do with implementing pedophilia. So the idea was to bring these divergent positions together under one umbrella so they could get more power and clout than they could otherwise get. And also, they were throwing in the residuum of the anti war movement that was an attack on masculinity at the time, saying that war was a man thing. Now, that is what you have as to how this thing developed. It was a power grab, a coalition to accomplish a purpose. What you do have, though, in San Francisco is not unique to San Francisco. It's the law for the entire state of California that reduces significantly the penalties for what otherwise would be aggravated rape. That is something that is enhanced statutory rape, where one of the parties is an adult and the other one is a too young minor. And they are advancing that in California, where the standard of punishment, if any is appropriate, will be much reduced if there is consent between a minor and an adult. if it is gay rather than heterosexual sex. So you have these things going on. You also, as you mentioned, have the push. Like, for example, Willie Brown, when he was Speaker of the House in California and then mayor for San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi, Gloria Feinstein before she died, they were all staunch supporters of Reverend Jim Jones, the person that ultimately killed all those people with the spiked Kool-Aid. They were staunch supporters, and also, I submit, because she was his mistress, so was Kamala Harris at the time, and they got a lot of advantage. Now, one thing I want to throw in and slightly change the conversation, it has developed that a lot of people in this country, for probably all of the right reasons, think that George Soros has been buying a bunch of prosecutors, with whom he has been destroying city law and order. Well, he owned one, he bought one, and she was the DA for San Francisco that he got elected to represent San Francisco. When she was running for Attorney General of the state of California, he put more money into financing his ownership of this person. And when that person got elected as Attorney General for the state of California, she dismissed 5,200 counts of felony indictments returned from just about every county in the state of California against Soros's bank, One West Bank, and his CEO, Mnuchin, late of the Obama administration and 1 year of the Trump administration before he got fired. And then he bought her way into being in the U.S. Senate, where she has an invidious distinction. She is the only person to ever get elected to U.S. Senator without a Republican candidate, or excuse me, a Republican opponent. Nor did she have one for Attorney General either. So I find that interesting. And then he was trying to take one of his owned properties, Kamala Harris Imhoff, and get a U.S. presidency out of it. And the word was some years ago, an exchange for that assistance on him getting another higher level prosecutor, he saw to it that there was a severe amount of finance delivered to the Biden administration on its first run for president. Now, that's what we have. Ownership of a whole series, a whole slew of urban blue prosecutors by George Soros, and his attempt to own a U.S. president as a sequel to that. So we thwarted Mr. Soros acquiring that much control over our day-to-day lives by acquiring control over the commander in chief and the chief administrative officer for the United States of America. Now that's something extra to throw in the mix and maybe think
well,
about
I think that all ties into what we were talking about when we talk about the LGBTQ cult. Like it's all tied into that, to where, yeah, when you look at, this man and buying off politicians, buying off prosecutors, buying the radio airways and stuff like that. So to do what? To push whatever agenda that they choose to, which is a problem. And the LGBTQ quote unquote cult is included, because let me just say this and then I'll go to the hands before we wind down. I don't think that, I look at it like this. If you can't have, like we was talking about, you can't have the 10 Commandments or other religious flags or other flags that represent whatever else in schools or what have you. When you look in certain cities and they have these rainbow painted in these intersections, I find it, peculiar I think peculiar that no one who pays taxes, the residents in that particular city, never pushed back. They just allowed it, as if, oh, that's okay. They have a right to be acknowledged. Well, if Black people wanted a black, red, and green in an intersection, city council went past that. It'd be denied, probably in the other group. So why is it that you allow that? And maybe it's because, well, first of all, you allow it because you voted in, and the public in that city, in that community, did not push back against it. Maybe it's because majority of these particular cities that it's in are heavily occupied with residents who are part of that part of that organization of LGBTQ group, which means that, which is true when we talk about, when we look at and we see a lot of heavily populated Jewish communities that all live together in a community. That's not by coincidence. A lot of LGBTQ people, they do get assistance, whether it's home down payments or what have you, and they're also in high income industries to afford homes. So they're the ones that own the homes in these communities that they go in and petition and vote for to have the rainbow in these intersections. So I say all that to say that they know how to work the system on a local level, but at the same time, is it legal for one particular group to have their organization plastered on federal or state property grounds? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No other organizations, no other group of people have their symbols or symbolic, acknowledgement embedded in a city, when we're talking about in a street intersection or flags in certain buildings and stuff like that. But they do. So why isn't people pointing that out?
They do. They don't want to hear it because you aren't published.
No, I'm talking about if you live in a community and live in a community, you pay taxes in that city, in that municipality. Why are you not going down to City Hall and saying, I object to this? And that is, I don't know if you could say that's reverse discrimination or favoritism over one group than another. Or you could say, well, if you allow them to have that in the intersection, their colors, I want these colors to represent my group of people over here. And if you say no to me, why are you saying yes to them? But nobody questions that, particularly Black people. They don't never question, they don't ever push back. So if you're not pushing back against that type of cult institution that's being passed with public policies, where you're being washed off or eliminated or pushed aside for something else. But that group that is advocating for themselves, they're getting these incentives. Black people do not advocate. Black people do not organize for public policies. So we could talk about the cult and all this other stuff, whether you white, Black, or what have you. But if you're not doing anything in your local community, when you see one group getting all these incentives and you're not, then you're part of the problem. So I'm gonna go to Walter, then the DM.
I want to say I really enjoyed this panel this evening as I give my summary of everything. Judge Joe Brown, your name is Reverend Brown. Now you was preaching. Very informative. Yeah, everything you was saying was very informative. And I do have a question for you, Judge Joe Brown. Is sodomy still a federal, still on the law books in the federal courts?
No, it is not.
It's not? Okay.
But I tell you what is, something that needs to be considered so you understand what was being done to everybody. The Emmett Till anti-lynch bill is a farce. It didn't do anything about lynching because, first off, it does not require that there be a mob involved to have a federal lynching case. It does not require that there be a homicide. It can be a kidnapping by one person. It can be a beating by one person. But what it does do is it interjects into the American criminal lexicon on the federal level the consideration of sexual orientation. In other words, a guy broke up with his girlfriend or his wife. His homeboy say, "Hey, man, let's go to a club." He goes to the club. He sees this PYT thing in a tight skirt. They get to dancing, exchanging spit in the shadows and drinking wine. And they're grinding on the floor over in the back corner, slow dancing. And he looks down and said, "What the devil? You got a hard on. Man, you a dude." And he bust him in the mouth. That is now federal lynching that brings in the FBI. So what did we have here? This was just something absolutely crazy that's way off kilter. So these are the kind of things that we have to watch out about, because there is this bait and switch deal where they put something out there that looks like it's supposed to be important, but all it is one more encroachment. And what Trump represents, what MAGA represents, is a stop being put to this sickness. This is not appropriate. So with that, I'm just, it's so much out there that is wrong about what's being done. I pass the mic.
DM.
I really appreciate you for the information.
Yeah,
DM.
last thing I wanted to say is also I appreciate this panel too. Always watch you guys, always love the education. Um, what I wanted to ask you, Dana and Judge, uh, under the Trump administration, what does LGBT look like? Does it fade away? Does it, because like they're it's part of society now. They have laws. So do they take laws back? Like, how does this look realistically going into the future with the LGBT community? Like, how
What?
they're
Nothing
both?
changed. Not.
Go ahead.
This is what I'm saying. Nothing changes with a group, no matter who's in office. They have what they have because they advocated for themselves. Black people can have what they want if you advocate, if you organize. They have every right to organize and advocate for public policies. Yes, it was a time to where they were shut out. They had to live in the closet and present themselves in society as if they were heterosexual, because if they were themselves, they would not be employed or they'd be discriminated against. And then when the AIDS epidemic hit, you know, shit, you really seen it. So they advocate for themselves. They're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong when you advocate for your group, and you have every right to do it. So you do see some of these liberals, I don't care whether you're straight, gay, it doesn't matter. You're a liberal. They are saying, but and the gay ones, let me say that, they are saying it's bad for us. They're lying, right? Because they know how this system works. They know that nothing is going to affect them and their public policies, because they know how to organize and advocate. And public policy is a public policy. Um, there are also people part of the LGBT community who are Republicans who voted for Trump. I had them on my show when I did the election watch party. So they're voting for Trump, right? So are they sitting here thinking, "Oh my God, I voted for a man and he's going to take my rights away"? No. And that's what I'm saying, to where, I don't want to always single out Black Americans. It's just that we do it at a higher level than any other group. We really need to re-educate ourselves on how this system in America works. The Constitution works, the law works, public policy works. They have every right to advocate for themselves and their public policies. And this is the thing too. I don't like the rainbow in the middle of the goddamn street. I don't. But I would be the only person down in City Hall complaining. And then they try to shame you. "Oh, you're being discriminatory, or, a bigot or whatever." I don't like it, because if I ask for something red, black, and green, you're going to say no. But again, did any group of black people organize and went to City Hall to ask for black, green, and red to be painted in the intersection? No, but they did. So I'm just to me, what the judge was explaining is, if you don't allow it for other groups, religions, or what have you, why are you allowing it for this one? And that goes federal, state, and on a local municipality. But at the same time, are Black Americans, particularly because I'm Black, advocating for the same type of public policies and incentives as an LGBTQ group? Mind you, and the reason why I'm doing a compare and contrast with them, they use the civil rights blueprint to get all the things they have today. So I'm not going to throw dirt on a group of people who are doing something that you're supposed to do in this country to get what you want, the pursuit of happiness.
Let me add something to this mix. Very briefly, all compulsions do not need to be allowed nor encouraged. In the course of what I did for 35 years as a judge, either a criminal court or circuit court judge in Tennessee or an arbitrator on television, there are people with compulsions that do not need to be encouraged, and they need to be kept from dealing with their compulsions. Just because you have one does not make it acceptable. I have seen persons with an irresistible urge or compulsion to commit homicide. They're called murderers. They're homicidal maniacs. I have run into people who have an irresistible urge, compulsion to have sex with children. They're called pedophiles. I have run into people who have gotten irresistible urges to have their way with women. They're called rapists. And just because somebody has a compulsion does not mean that compulsion needs to be indulged. And one of the sickest things that is going on right now is what I think is the mistaken idea that we have to support this rainbow cult just because some have compulsions. Now, as long as nobody's getting harmed, people have a right under the First Amendment to advocate all they want, but the rest of us have no obligation to support it. The Nazi Party has a right to protest, march, and do what they want. So does the Klan. But we don't have to support that. So please don't get the idea that just because somebody's got some strange way of getting off and having mutual or self masturbation, that means we have to enforce it or we have to sit there and support it. They may have a right to it under the First Amendment, but the rest of us don't have to go for it. There are a lot of things that way.
Well, what I'm
It's
saying
cussing in
is,
front of a
what,
church
but this is what
audience.
but
Don't
this
have
is
to
what I'm
do that
saying.
either.
Just to your point, if you don't speak up and say, I pay taxes in the city and I don't want the rainbow in that intersection. If you don't speak up, you're supporting it. Even if you feel as though you don't personally support it, well, that's just your personal opinion. But if you really want to do something about it, then speak up, because it is not, and correct me, Judge, if I'm wrong, it is not racist or discriminatory if you go to city council and say, you approve to have a rainbow painted in an intersection. I don't want it there.
The hell with all
No,
of
no,
that.
no.
Go ahead and file. No,
Is
look,
that
look.
is that
File.
will that person be
Look,
labeled? Is that discrimination? That's what I'm
excuse me.
asking.
Excuse me. The hell with that. Go file a criminal action for defacement of public property.
But no one,
That's what
right?
you
But
need to
they're
do.
not doing that.
That doesn't keep the citizen from
No,
doing
I'm
that.
talking about the citizen. So the citizen, and mind you, these rainbow intersections are in Democrat cities. You don't really see them in. You don't see them much in Republican. However, this is the point that this is what I'm getting to. And then also, majority of the people that live in that particular community are the community itself. But again, The citizens are not saying that.
So what I'm asking is, do you see that it loses steam under this administration, or does it continue on the path that it's been on?
What loses steam?
Like the LGBTQ whole movement in schools, trying to give the kids drugs, all type the transgender, every like does that stuff lose steam under the Trump administration,
Yes,
or
it
does it
loses
still?
steam.
Yeah.
It does lose steam because Trump did make an announcement. 'Cause if you guys don't know, he drops his daily announcements about who he's appointing or what his plans are. He did make an announcement as far as first of all, the education he's giving it back to. He wants to give it back to the state and dismantle the federal education. But I believe he did mention something as far as um, transgender minors and trying to transition them without the parents' permission.
Well, let me say this. Legally, the deal is First Amendment allows somebody to advocate something all day long as they're not breaching the public peace, the equivalent of yelling fire falsely in a crowded theater, as long as they're not trying to utter fighting words to get people to engage in immediate physical combat and breach the public peace, you can advocate any damn thing you want. But there is a distinction between what I think Trump's administration is going to do and what is done now, which is there is no way, no how under the sun, under this Constitution, where it is to be permitted that any government authority in the United States of America promotes this. You can't promote the cross, the crescent, the star, the the principle of various and sundry religions and philosophies. You can't support and advocate and deal with enfranchising by the state. You cannot do that, nor can you have the United States government. And I think Trump is going to get the federal government, and through them, since these laws apply to the states out of the business of some of them foolishly trying to support and contrive to lend encouragement to certain philosophies. You can't do that because the United States is not allowed to be the respecter of a religion. And this is what it is. And if you don't think it's a religion because there's no Godhead to it, contemplate Buddhism. It's an old and ancient religion, but it has no God. You do not have to be a God, have a God to be a Buddhist, but you can have a God and be a Buddhist. It's a simple, not simple, but it's a system of behaviors, of philosophy, of striving for improvement of the human condition and the personal condition. But we have a similar thing that is a negation. It's called the rainbow. All gays don't follow it. Some think it's an anathema. But in any form, shape, or fashion, no state government, no local government, no county government, no United States government has any business attempting to foster it, promote it, encourage it, finance it, or give aid and comfort to it.
All right, I want to get to El Hotep, and then we're gonna close out. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey Dana, just three quick points. You're right when you bring up the point that it takes families and it takes people in the community to bring this up. That's the whole reason why the ban was pushed in the first place. You had people in the neighborhood complaining and going to city council. It's ironic. Well, I won't say it's ironic. The interesting thing is the mayor of the city is gay, and and I think the main thing why people don't stand up and they don't voice their opinion is because they don't want to be labeled as homophobic. Because that's one thing that he's been vocal with, saying that the community is homophobic, and they're now trying to push it to the California Supreme Court. So I think that's one big fear that a lot of people had. Black people aren't organizing and having these type of conversations. I think it's a small few. That's why I stopped having these kind of conversations with friends, because they're just real comfortable with the way life is. They want to talk basketball. They want to talk sports. Um, they don't really want to talk about anything constructive. And when you do talk politics, it's the same old nonsense. Obama, Democrats, vote blue no matter what. And they rely on their talking points and information for people like Charlemagne and Roland Martin. So you can kind of see who's very serious with the talk and who's very serious with the action. And I think that's the main problem. It's not too many people that are really serious about the action. Um, but I think until people on a local level start voicing their opinion and pushing back, that's when you're going to see some real change. And Downey is a Democratic city. It's not a Republican city, so it's interesting that a lot of the people in the city and in the community are pushing back. I think until people on a local level start to push back, you won't see any change.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I'm familiar with Downey. I grew up in Los Angeles. I moved out of there a long time ago, but I went from kindergarten through law school there, and I was back 15 years or so when I was doing my show. You're absolutely right, but we don't have to encourage him. Just say, man, that's your right. You effed up, man, but that's your problem. You got a right to be. I'm sorry for you. That's like my uncle or one of my buddies, if you're as old as I am, got his leg blown off in the Nam because he stepped left when a sergeant told him to stay to the right. So sorry, you just got a problem that you carry with you for the rest of your life. No hard feelings, but the rest of us ain't buying it. It's your business, but don't ask me to help you because there's a lot of stuff I won't help.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't get my thing, like, you got a problem? What is it? Oh, really? And that's your problem. And you want me to help you? No. Go get a job, dude. Don't ask me for any damn spare change. Last 6 times I came in this gas station, you in here asking for spare change. Go get a job.
Well, I don't really like talking about LGBTQ stuff too much because that's, first of all, that's not my community. And second of all, we could discuss anything, but when that comes up, people feel some kind of way that they get all of these incentives or concessions and stuff like that, or special treatment. But then I have to ask the question, did you advocate for your group? So you can't sit up here, complain about someone else who actually organized and did the work and advocated for themselves when you did not. If you did, and they gave you, and these public officials say no, and you really advocated and organized and you got no, but they got yes, then we could go and we could, do something about it. Then you talk about having some relevancy behind that. But if you're just sitting on your ass and you just pointing a finger, complaining about a group or a person or a situation, and you're not doing anything where you live at in your community for your group of people, then I don't have these conversations. And I'm not going to keep having conversations about one particular group when this group over here, especially the group I'm a part of, ain't doing shit.
May I make one warning very quickly? Stop any mention of hate crimes. They're poison. Hate crimes are a trap. And some of these people depend upon setting traps for ordinary people. Hate crimes sound meritorious. They're not. Because I can guarantee you any damn hate crime that is come up with or propounded will be turned against the makers within a decade of it being made. It just allows people to restrict speech. This system does not work on restricted speech. It only works where everything goes. As long as you're talking about an idea, we don't have to be slutty. We don't have to be pornographic. We don't have to be obscene. That's just a nicety or something. But Any idea should be exchangeable, and the idea that something is called a hate crime because it makes somebody feel good or bad is ridiculous, because this system needs to be composed of strong people. And if they aren't strong enough to remember, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And if they can't deal with that or grow strong enough to cope with it, they don't need to be around, so screw them. We don't need to come up with hate crimes, because they have a nasty way of being used for oppression, not helping somebody. Now, I've said that. That's another point.
Okay, so I want to say one last thing and then have you give your closing remarks. That wasn't your closing remarks, was it?
Might have been.
Oh. No, I just want to say this though about the new Trump administration that will be sworn into office. Was it January 20th of 2025? To me, when I look at his administration this time around, it is about doing, not him or his administration doing for you. It should give everyone of every sex, every gender, every ethnicity, every background, every race, give people hope and give people the fire to take the initiative and start doing. Do for yourself, do for your community, do for your family. To me, that's what this administration is about. It's about getting shit done and upholding the Constitution. That's it. And if you're going to just sit on the sideline for all Americans, then you are the problem. And then for Black Americans, if you're not going to take this opportunity under this administration and actually, especially younger people, my generation and younger, but if you're not going to take the initiative to do something, first of all, where you live at on a local level and also on a national level, then, you're useless, basically. You cannot complain. You cannot be upset about anything. You don't have a voice, and you should not have a voice if you're not going to be a doer. But go ahead, Judge. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you to everybody on YouTube. Oh, thank you for the poll. Thank you to everybody on YouTube. Thank you to my moderators, everybody here that's listening. Please, this is not recorded. You could go on YouTube, The Real Judge Joe Brown 23, to listen to this tonight's space. Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. And if you share this space, thank you. And all the speakers that came up, I really appreciate all you guys, some great speakers. And of course, thank you to Judge Joe Brown for having great intellectual content, conversations, and discussions every Tuesday on X. Go ahead, Judge.
Well, my concluding remarks tonight will be short. I want you to think. I want you to think outside of the envelope. Try something different. Don't let your thoughts be cast in stone or in clay that gets fired by the people who are against you. Think differently. Try to come up with something novel. Come up with something that you can't find anybody else thinking. Because typically there is a narrative that's cast, and that narrative gets people to thinking along the lines of the narrative, even if they don't agree with it. And when you start thinking in tune with something, you become harmonized with it, synced with it, and your mindset, your landscape becomes that of the people who are trying to do something that you don't like. Now, I pass. Anybody else?
No, you was closing the remark. No, you was
That is
closing
the
out.
closing remark.
Okay.
I said it'd be short tonight.
All right. Good night, everybody.